everybody. Welcome again to the really live Green Rush Business of Cannabis talk show that we have here every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the sometimes host of Green Rush Live. This is the New England Cannabis Convention in Boston at the Heinz Auditorium. That's where I'm at. But the reason why I am here with this beautiful female, my dearest friend, Deirdre Ravito from Rev Clinics, is here. 5 years ago, I walked up to her and I said, I can't start my podcast unless I have a sponsor. And you said,
I'm in.
That was it. And it's all started, and they're still our sponsors. They still manage the best brands of cannabis, the #1 wholesaler, the #1 medical dispensary in the state, and I'm so proud to call them friends. Thank you, Deirdre. And more importantly, you brought in Big Poppy. And by the way, those Silver Sluggers, they're really good.
They're pretty good.
How are things going?
Jimmy, they're going great, and I can't thank you for that introduction, and it's been a pleasure, and I can't believe it's been 5 years. It went by really fast.
For some of us.
For some of us. And we're still moving really fast, and it's a joy to be here today with you, and we can't thank you enough for supporting Rev and our brands and our people, and we'll do the same for you.
Thank you. That's Deirdre Ravito. Everybody loves her in the industry. I'm Jimmy Young. Well, the jury's still out, I guess. But I have an interview ready to go with Berkshire Roots. And Berkshire Roots is one of those very aggressive dispensaries in the state of Massachusetts that also understands a good brand when they know it. And they're going to introduce you, actually, I guess I'm going to introduce you, to the heavy metal brand. That's coming up right now. Live from the Summit Lounge is supported by CNA Stores in Massachusetts, a veteran-owned and family-operated dispensary in Amesbury and Haverhill that has the best selection in the state and a dedication to the community north of Boston.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
In the Weeds live special is supported by Yellow Labs, raising expectations for performance from THC-infused oral sprays of 3 milligrams delivered under your tongue and made by Berkshire Roots with 2 locations in Pittsfield and in East Boston. Hi everybody, welcome back to Green Rush Live from the New England Cannabis Convention. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and I am here on the floor. And one of the things I really like about going to trade shows is meeting new people, okay? And I look at this woman's sign here at the Pro Mix booth, okay? And it says, #1 growing media in the market. Now, anybody who follows the Pro Cannabis Media journey, we've been called one of the fastest growing media companies in the country. That being said, this has nothing to do with the media that I'm in. So I met Rebecca, get this, Podniesinski. Fair, right? Tell me the right way to pronounce it, just so people are already laughing at me.
Podniesinski.
Podniesinski. I'm going down a limb thinking that's a Polish name.
It's very Polish.
Very Polish. Okay. All right. Young is just Young is a a name of the world. It can be whatever it wants to be. Now, Rebecca, she's a scientist, okay? Which means she's a lot smarter than I am. Explain to me how some kind of a biofungicide, mycorrhizal, she can pronounce all those words. How does that media?
So the mycorrhiza is a beneficial active ingredient or biological that we add to our growing media. And basically our growing media, which differs from yours, is a physical thing. And in the industry of growing, a media is what your plant is growing in. Think of dirt, but it's not dirt. We prefer to call it soil, but our soils are actually now made of different components, whether it's coconut coir, sometimes you're looking at peat moss and looking at other revitalizing sources that we make our growing medias from.
Got it. Didn't we learn something? I learned something there, definitely, that not all media is the same. I teach it a conduit of information. That's what media is. That being said, you explained a different use of the term. So when you go to the definitions, definitions of words, if anybody actually goes to a dictionary anymore, doubtful, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's always different types of definitions of the same word. That's why English is such a challenge to learn. Rebecca, how important is organic growing in the world that you are in? Because I have friends that are in the organic cultivar world from Humboldt County, and I know nothing about growing. What a shock, right? What a shock. I know plenty about media and other things, but I know nothing about growing. And I'm banned because I have a black thumb. I kill any plant that I start growing, even if I had Pro Mix in it. What differentiates your product from others in this space?
Well, one of the first off is that we've been around for 100 years as a company in the growing media business. So we're not new, and we research a lot. Our innovations is really what sets us apart. And as far as organic growing, it's the concept of integrated pest management, or IPM, is starting with proper soil mechanics, give you less disease pressure, less insect pressure, which requires less treatment and a healthier crop. So if you do all those things, you're not only not having to treat organically, you're having to treat less in general and having less of a chemical footprint.
That's why she's the scientist and the representative for Pro Mix. That's why I'm the whatever, fill in the blank here, the host of Green Rush Live, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. And now I'm going to actually toss it to another interview across the hall, because I was just at the heavy metal booth with Berkshire Roots James Winokur. And that's the interview that's coming up next. Live from the Summit Lounge is supported by CNA Stores in Massachusetts, a veteran-owned and family-operated dispensary in Amesbury and Haverhill that has the best selection in the state and a dedication to the community north of Boston.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
In the Weeds live special is supported by Yellow Labs, raising expectations for performance from THC-infused oral sprays of 3 milligrams delivered under your tongue and made by Berkshire Roots with 2 locations in Pittsfield and in East Boston. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Live from the New England Cannabis Convention. It's In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. No, it's not. Today it's Green Rush Live, you know, because it's Friday at 4 o'clock. That's the time we always do our Business of Cannabis talk show. And today I'm on location at NECANN at the Heinz Auditorium in Boston. This is one of the biggest trade shows in the cannabis industry in the world. Okay, outside of Vegas. All right? Is that fair enough? Fair. All right. Now, see, here's the problem. This is James Winokur from Berkshire Roots. Not a problem. He's one of my favorite people with a couple of great products. But you took your name tag and you put it in your pocket. So as a reporter, I didn't memorize your name.
No worries. My name's Tommy Coriale.
Tommy Coriale, okay, is your name.
That is.
Any relation to Dan? Never mind. Everything comes back to sports with me. I apologize. Okay.
I love it.
Oh, you do?
I'm not no relation, but I love the sports.
Okay, good. Fair enough. At least then you'll understand my analogies. Yes. Heavy Metal is the brand.
Correct, sir.
Now, we're going to come back because Heavy Metal now is being carried by the wholesale division of Berkshire Roots or the distribution center. What is it being carried by, James?
Well, actually, it's a collaboration.
Okay.
So Heavy Metal's a licensed product for Berkshire Roots. We're the manufacturer, develop the products, and now distributing the products.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He's a one-man band, this guy, right? You talk about a vertically integrated professional. This is him right here, right? Tell me, Mr. Heavy Metal, about exactly what this product is and why you're so excited to bring it to Massachusetts with a dream teamer like James.
So Heavy Metal, 45-year-old adult theme brand, mainly focused in content, science fiction, fantasy, horror, but really is a lifestyle and a DNA brand, right? And we, over the years, management has thought about doing things like this, but James actually was the original one to reach out and start a conversation. And as that conversation evolved, I did my research on Berkshire Roots, both about them and then also testing their product, got a tour of the facilities, and then got under the hood about, in their brain to see if they understood the brand and, why it made sense and how we were going to want to interact with our customers. It all came together in kind of a perfect marriage, and we're really excited about the past couple months of development and about going live in about a month from now.
Okay. Well, again, another unique product coming out of the Berkshire Roots machine, right? I suppose I could probably ask you what's the best part, which product you are the most happy with, but I'm going to turn to him and ask him that. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
James, what is the best product you think for the Heavy Metal group that you're excited?
Well, I'm excited about all of them. We actually started from scratch. We said we want to do something really unique for the brand, so we have 3 new strains that we've never sold at Berkshire Roots. Of course, everything's derived from there, concentrates, vape carts, so we have some really great vape carts. That might be my favorite, but really great edibles too. So we wanted some things that people really like, and then a couple of what I call palate-challenging edibles too, that go with the brand. So I think the whole lineup and introducing the whole suite of products, pretty unique.
So what's unique, guys, as I'm sure you know, and I think you probably know, is there's not supposed to be interstate commerce in cannabis. And yet, with someone like your brand and your stuff, you can replicate your stuff over different states, right?
In theory, yes, absolutely. But the main focus is launching first in Massachusetts, getting it right. Again, why we're excited about the partners that we have, having good quality strains to build, the entire line off of, and then also figuring out like a 360, like I said, interactive experience for our customers. So within the packaging, there's going to be art from the brand, for both old and new. There's also going to be QR codes.
Who does your art?
Artists from all over the world.
I love that.
Heavy Metal is the world's kind of foremost illustrated magazine, you can see here, and is known for its art over the many years. Also, though, the QR codes will be able to take you to new content that'll be tied directly to cannabis. So over time, yes, the plan is hopefully to grow it, but we're going to get it right here in Massachusetts first, and we're going to take it from there.
You're certainly working with one of the best, as far as I can say. And of course, you and I just met, and he's not paying me, so it comes from the heart. Plus, I love your products, as you know.
Thank you, sir.
He's also the exclusive carrier, while I die, of the Yellow Labs spritz. And you know that product too.
I have tried it. I like it.
I like it. Everybody who tries it likes it. It's like that old commercial from Alka-Seltzer. I try it, you'll like it. How quickly can you turn that stuff around? How quickly can you turn that Yellow Labs? In other words, how quickly can you manufacture all that? Because every time I go to a dispensary and ask for it by name,
Yes.
they're out of it.
Well, we love that demand is high. We can make lots of product, but the buyer orders a certain quantity, and we'll be thrilled if they run out. But we try and keep on top of it. We can make plenty for you, Tommy, as much as you want. Tommy loves it, Jimmy loves it, everybody loves it. Yeah.
And Interstate, I'm going to go back to Interstate Commerce with James here. Because you cannot take flour across state lines.
Or anything.
Correct. Or right. Well, you could have it right. You barely could take it out of the dispensary and use it privately at this point. But let's just cut to the chase and talk about interstate commerce, because manufactured products, licensed recipes that can be replicated in different states is going on all over the country.
Yeah, I've been involved with Cannabis since 2014. My first company, that's exactly what we were doing, is lining up manufacturers in other states to make the product. I was at MariMed, same thing, getting license deals in. Actually brought a hot sauce from Puerto Rico to Massachusetts when I was at MariMed. So we're going to do the same thing with our Berkshire Roots products. We're only a Massachusetts licensed operator. We would like to bring our brands to New York and Connecticut and Rhode Island, so that's the way you have to do it.
And I'm guessing you're spending a little time in those neck of the woods now.
Yeah, we are lining up our manufacturers and those arrangements in other states so we can bring our Berkshire Roots brands there. Yeah.
So pardon my age-appropriate ignorance about heavy metal, okay? I remember when heavy metal started, and to me, it was noise. It was a lot of noise, right? Is that kind of what you're hoping to create in the industry, is a lot of noise, or also really good products? That's a loaded question.
No, it's an easy question because the answer is both, right? I think, look, that's why this brand makes sense, because it is a loud brand, from on the page to off the page to what it's done in animation. It's always been kind of groundbreaking and unique and cutting through the norm, right? It's almost been a megaphone for counterculture, we say internally. And so, that makes sense when you're trying to launch a product into a difficult market, right? We think that we have that kind of unique hook as a brand, and again, a kind of 360 interactive experience. But the product has to be fantastic also. You asked me before, like, what are my favorite products? I mean, Berkshire Roots makes fantastic products across every single line. I'm very, very partial to the chocolate bars. Like, he knows I talk about them all the time. But honestly, the consistency, the potency, what you're expecting from each strain, like, it has been phenomenal. And it's really important that we stay, a premium brand with a premium supplier like that.
So now do I have to go, I want my heavy metal at Berkshire Roots?
Yes.
Is that pretty much what the campaign's going to be?
You have to sing a song.
Well, the song I sing, and if you went to the Summit Lounge event, I did sing Shanty. Now, there's very few people out there that are under the age of 60 who remember the song Shanty by Jonathan Edwards. I'm going to guess that this heavy metal guy has never heard of it. Am I right?
You are correct.
And I'm going to guess you probably have.
I know Jonathan Edwards, so I probably know the song.
Not only does he know the song, he knows Jonathan Edwards. Yeah. I'm not gonna sing it with you, but I hope some Wednesday at Summit Lounge you'll come out with us and we'll do it.
We'll do some singing.
All right, there you go. He's Tommy from Heavy Metal. He's James from Berkshire Roots. I'm Jimmy Young. We're gonna have more of Green Rush Live from NECANN. After this, don't go away. Live from the Summit Lounge is supported by CNA Stores in Massachusetts, a veteran-owned and family-operated dispensary in Amesbury and Haverhill. It has the best selection in the state and a dedication to the community north of Boston.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
In the Weeds live special is supported by Yellow Labs, raising expectations for performance from THC-infused oral sprays of 3 milligrams delivered under your tongue and made by Berkshire Roots, with 2 locations in Pittsfield and in East Boston.
Welcome to Calling All Growers. I'm your host, Liz Grow, and this is a very special edition of Calling All Growers live today. We are joined by the iconic actor, comedian, singer, Last Prisoner Project ambassador, and cannabis farmer, Jim Belushi. But before we talk to Jim, my co-host, none other than Jimmy Young.
Hey, thank you so much, Liz. And of course, this is also a special day for Pro Cannabis Media, because not only are we interviewing Jim Belushi live on our network, but we're also introducing a growing webinar with growers from Humboldt County in the Emerald Triangle of California. We met Wendy Kornberg and James Burer out there. Ben Morgan Dillon from a local farm in Massachusetts is here and is going to be part of this webinar as well. And by the way, it's a free webinar. So all you have to do is go onto our website, Pro Cannabis Media, and sign up for that webinar. We will have excerpts of this interview with Jim during that webinar. So without any further ado, one of my favorite comedic actors of all time, and Jim, you already know when that all started. I welcome you to our program, and thank you for finally making the time for us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I love being around cannabis people. They're generous, they're kind, they're thoughtful, and they have the right purpose in life.
Absolutely. Hey, how did the idea for Growing Belushi, your show on Discovery and now on demand all over the place, how did that all come about?
It's on demand on Discovery Plus, and I think it's on rerun on Discovery Cable, but Discovery Plus where you can get it.
Yeah.
How did the show come about? Oh, Jesus. Well,
was he involved?
Jesus is always on my side. I love Jesus.
Well, it's mission from God. It's a mission from God.
Mission from God.
That's right.
Jesus, Buddha, Papatua,
Moses.
Moses.
Thank you.
Gandhi, Alahenu, you name them, they're all one to me. Martin Luther King, they're all prophets and mission men with Mother Teresa.
Yes,
absolutely.
She was Albanian, actually, an Albanian Roman Catholic, and she was on a mission from God too. We're all on a mission from God.
So whose idea was it? Whose idea was that show, Jim?
Well, my partner James Orr, he wrote, produced, and directed a movie I did called Mr. Destiny. He also wrote Three Men and a Baby, Father of the Bride, Sister. I mean, prolific, wonderful writer during the Disney heyday, Touchstone heyday. And we became friends. And I don't know, I said, hey, man, you're a director, you're a shooter, come to the farm, bring your camera, bring your drone. because he works with, he's partnered with a guy named James Suckling, or the James Suckling website, which has all the great wines. He does, oh God, he does all these wine events all over the world, but he has a website. He's got a website that has Havana. If you want to go to Havana, you go to his website and he tells you all the places to go. Anyway, James, he shot 40 shorts in Italy in 40 days of about 40 wineries. And then he did a pizza special in Naples for the website. And I went, well, listen, why don't you just come and shoot me on the farm? Let's see what happens. I mean, this is a very unusual business. I'm really feel like I'm on some kind of journey here. You're not doing anything. Come on over. So he came and we shot over Labor Day a few years ago. He put together a 9-minute kind of sizzle reel. And I went out and pitched it to my agent, and they put me together with Original Productions. They took that sizzle reel and cut it down to 5 minutes, and then we went out and pitched it. It's a great sizzle reel. And one of the geniuses, Michael Rapino, who runs Live Nation, what a brilliant, kind man. I sat with him, I showed him the sizzle reel, and 8 minutes later, he shook my hand and gave me money to shoot 6 1.5-hour episodes. And then we shot them. Then we went to Discovery and showed them, and they said, we'll take it, combine them to 3 1-hours, which broke my heart because I had to cut 9 minutes out of each episode. Oh. I hated losing those jokes.
I was going to say, where's that footage? Because that exists somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Bonus.
We steal. We have 29 hours of Columbia.
I know.
Chris, me, and James just went down there. We hired a crew, and we just started walking.
Ooh,
that's my favorite episode. That's my favorite episode.
Oh, I have a lot of hours of Columbia that couldn't make the show. But I own all the footage, so I'm definitely doing something with it for sure.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Liz.
Good.
Liz is dying to ask you a question. I know she is. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I am, but I mean, I can listen to the stories all day long. There's no question. I'm just loving being in this part of this conversation, Jim. But Calling All Growers is a show for growers. It's a show for growers to help each other learn different practices and get better at their craft. And so I guess, I would love to know from you, what do you wish you knew when you started growing that you know now?
They never told me about mites and aphids, gophers, grasshoppers. I mean, I feel like a cross between Bill Murray and Elmer Fudd on my farm, killing these, these little things, that then mold. Oh my God, mold. I mean, they didn't tell me it was farming.
Right.
It's farming.
Right.
And I understand. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just going to ask you didn't grow cannabis before you started farming the cannabis?
No, I had just, I had this 13 acres on the Rogue River, which was just gorgeous. And I built a little house there, and it's just really sanctuary. And I became friends with the neighbors right behind me, Becca and Charlie. I love Becca. Anyway, they had an 80-acre farm, and Becca, unfortunately, took the illness and she passed, and she wanted me to have the farm. So I bought the farm and gave Charlie a life estate. So I had this farm, and I didn't know what to do with it. I mean, I had 90 acres on the Rogue River. I didn't know that we were in the middle of what they call the banana belt, which is an area that's shaped like a leaf of a banana. We're right here, right? This area is prime for grapes, pears, and cannabis, outdoor cannabis. So there's 292 days of sunlight. I'm by a beautiful river with I feed these girls water that's like Arrowhead water. So almost a perfect pH. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to get cattle. I didn't want to grow alfalfa or corn. I didn't know. And then cannabis became illegal that year. And I went, wow, new agriculture. So I just talked to Danny Aykroyd, and he knew Captain Jack. And Jimmy, you should talk to Captain Jack, grow some of it. Fine, cannabis. It's from Afghanistan. He went there in 1971 and 72, and he brought the seeds back from the villages of Masharif. And these seeds are unbelievable. They're landrace strains. Nothing's ever touched them. They're originally from a hash plant because that city was known, that village was known. It was off the Silk Road supplying hash to all of Asia. Okay. So Captain Jack came. We grew 24 plants, and then another friend of mine, Jeffrey Iverson, who's a great geneticist out of Bend, had beautiful sativas. And so we grew 48 plants, and then it just kind of started growing. The ball just didn't stop. And then we built green hoop houses. Then I've torn down the hoop houses because of too much mold, not enough ventilation. This has been an education. My cousin always says to me, tuition, Jim. You're paying tuition.
Absolutely.
So it just steamrolled.
Incredible.
Now I have 4 state-of-the-art grow tech greenhouses, and I put in LED lights from Foch lights. These LED lights are fantastic. They give us about 30% more penetration, which is 30% more yield, and the THC and the terpene profiles have been enhanced. But I also subsidized it with advanced nutrients from Big Mike and Rogue Soil. So between the soil and nutrients and these lights and that controlled atmosphere in the greenhouse, I still have father-son feeding these girls, and I use lights to supplement when there's cloud cover. Like, we want to have 1,100 looms of penetration of light. So when the clouds come, it goes down about 750, and I got this total grow control brain that has sensors and senses it, so it'll bump the lights up in order to maintain the consistency of that 1,100 looms for the girls. So automatically, it just shifts. It keeps the airflow perfect. It keeps the temperature and humidity perfect. I am now a great controlled environment. The LED lights, I was afraid didn't have the full spectrum, but damn, they do. You can't see it, but it's there. So I have the full spectrum of light that supplements father-son, because I don't really want to grow in a box. Something about it, even though you get more money per pound, something about the sun, you can't replace the sun.
No.
Hey, go ahead, keep going.
Oh yeah. Anyway, I'll keep going because I just love this stuff.
It's incredible. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love hearing you talk about it. And
we have controlled environments, no aphids, no rustic mites, no gophers, no squirrels, no deer, and no mold, because the moisture is so controlled. And so I couldn't be happier. This is our first yield. As you can see on the TV show, Growing Belushi, you watch us build these greenhouses. And it is the best harvest and the best cannabis that we've grown.
Oh, incredible.
Can I ask you, he brought up something about seeds, and the whole seed universe and genetics fascinates me. I've got a friend in the business from Green Nexus, and he's got Dutch seeds. And do you know anything about Dutch seeds like Barney's and Passion or something like that?
No, I was in Amsterdam and there's stores with seeds, and I'm going to Spain. I'm going to that Cannabis convention to speak in Barcelona in a couple weeks. And somebody told me, he said, grab any seed they give you. They have some great genetics there. I work with a guy named Ryan Radio out of Central California, who's supplying some genetics that we are just testing out now. Oh my God, this guy is
Brilliant.
Ryan is really great, and he gifted me some seeds, so we're excited about that. But I think the future of cannabis is going to be in the genetics, because weed is weed,
Right.
I mean, a guy. I heard a horror story. Guy walks in the dispensary, says to the bud tender, "What's that?" The jar, right? And she goes, "It's grass." She goes, "Well, what's that?" "It's grass." "Well, why is that one more expensive? Why is Willie's more expensive than that?" And she goes like this. "It's grass."
God.
It's grass. You want to get high? Here's some grass.
Does it get you high or not? I mean, that's really, does it get you high?
Wow, that is a shame. I mean, it really is, because it's not just grass. I mean, it's a medicine. It's a healing plant, and our bud tenders are our first line of education.
This was just one girl, so
yeah.
They're,
but I
they're
mean,
much more. They're much more sophisticated now.
Yeah. No, I know that. So, okay. I learned something really, really cool, Jim, that we have our favorite strain in common, cherry pie. It's hard to come by. That baby is, oh God, I love this strain so much. And so that was exciting to me.
We call the cherry pie the marriage counselor.
Oh.
Why?
Well,
it gets you horny. Come on, you could say.
Well, I think any pot will do that, but
but it's Granddaddy Perps. Yeah.
You know why?
Poison cross.
Because mine has like a 19% THC and about a 3.2% terpene. And for me, that's kind of the right combination, because I'm not a pothead. I don't smoke all day, although it's okay that people do when they need the medicine. I'm more of a microdoser. I use Jamie Pearson's Bang chocolate, who we did a collab with for Blues Brothers chocolate. I use like 2.5 to 5 milligrams at night to go to sleep. And the cherry pie has an entourage effect with the terps and the low THC that give me kind of a nice feeling. I'm chatty, I'm charming, I feel good. It takes the edge off the day if I feel anxiety. Right. But what happened was, my wife at the time was coming down the stairs.
I'm not going there. I will not go there, because I've had two at the time.
I just finished 3. So, it could be me. It could be me. Okay. It could be.
There is a consistency. I know that feeling, Jim.
But you have the bud. You have the marriage counselor.
Anyway, she came down the stairs one night. I was at the bottom of the stairs, and she said, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Would you like to go out?" I go, "Sure." She said, "What do you have a taste for?" I said, "Well, a cheeseburger." She goes, "Oh, Jim, that's a little heavy for me. Anything else?" I said, "Well, how about some sushi?" "Oh, Jim, I had sushi with my mom last night. She's a very nice girl." And she said, "Anything else?" I said, "Why are you wasting my time? You know we're going to eat where you want to eat. We're going to eat what you want to eat. Why are you wasting my time? Let's just go. I'm hungry." She looked at me like, whoa. So the next night, I took one hit off my cherry pie, came down the stairs, She's like a little tentative. Are you hungry? Yeah. Would you like to go out and get something to eat? Okay. Where would you like to go? And I said, baby, we can go to Taco Bell as long as you're sitting across from me.
Great line.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, well, aren't you being charming? Am I? So I call Cherry Pie the marriage counselor. And by the way, I told this story at a harvest party in Oregon. I sold out of cherry pie in 2 months. I can't make enough cherry pie. People love the marriage counselor.
Incredible, incredible. Are there any strains, any cultivars that you wish you could offer? Or that you're looking for?
There's just so many. And I think the future of our industry, going back to that story about it's just grass.
Right.
I really think the future of our industry has to do with proprietary genetics. Like we have this Captain Jack, which is a landrace strain, and it's not a high THC, but it's got 5.25% terpenes, and 72% of that is mercy. And this came right. That's why it was like a great hash plant. I mean, Captain Jack was talking about when he was in Afghanistan, they would take these big, buds, and they would just bang it like this. Just bang it to get all the resin out. And they'd throw the plant away. It was because they were making hash.
Yes.
And so this plant came from a hash plant, which mercy is really the indica. I mean, the really dry, it's really medicine. It really takes care of your body. It is very potent, I think.
Great for pain patients. That's absolutely.
But I'll tell you where I heard about it was Danny. That's how he knew Captain Jack. Captain Jack was the weed dealer for Saturday Night Live.
I knew that.
In the early 70s. And Danny and Davis and a few others would smoke this on Monday night and Tuesday night when they were writing. It kept them up all night, and it made them, it's very fun and creative. And I know Coneheads came from the smoke of this. Anyway, Captain Jack, it was a very pungent terpenes. So the 17th floor at Rockefeller Center smelled, and they called Captain Jack the smell of SNL.
I love it. I love that. And
That's incredible.
I love the references back to SNL, obviously, because I'm a child of the 60s, so I remember the original cast of Saturday Night Live. And on one of your shows, you mentioned that if medicinal marijuana was around when SNL was around and John was alive, that you believe he'd be alive today because he'd enjoy playing that medicine rather than just for fun.
It's a complicated statement that I've made, and I get asked all the time.
Yeah,
hard for me to explain what. I believe John had CTE from playing football. I watched him seizure in the house.
Oh wow!
Senior year, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They did spinal taps, X-rays, but now I know he was a middle linebacker, and he was all-state, all-conference. Back then it was like, "What's the matter, Belushi? You got your belt wrong? Get your ass back in."
Yeah.
So I believe that he was chasing a medicine.
Wow.
And there was no medicine back then.
Right.
It was alcohol. It was pot was considered a drug. It was cocaine. It was pills. It was, it was the culture said this was a fun thing to do. We know now cannabis is way more medical. Psilocybin is fantastic, in my opinion, for microdosing for people with severe depression, anxiety, PTSD. So plant medicine has evolved out of it being a gateway drug. It's a gateway to healing. Right. So I believe if John was a pothead, he'd be alive today.
Interesting.
But he was also a cultural leader reflecting that generation, and that generation was doing Animal House stuff, cocaine. It was the hip thing. And I think he kind of got caught in that culturally, but also helping him with I believe, his problems that he had. So, and then it was turned into an accidental overdose, of course, and they're happening more frequently now with fentanyl. It's terrible. So, yeah, if he was a pothead, he'd be alive today, for sure.
There you go. And probably didn't get COVID either, I might add, because
Right.
yeah, just saying. The endocannabinoid system works amazing things if it's activated on a regular basis, Jim.
Yep.
At least this is what I found. It's why I'm leaving my body to science. It's very simple. And I'm going to list all the things that went in the body in my lifetime. Go ahead, Liz.
My mind is like blown right now, Jimmy, thinking of all the things that they'll find. Just kidding. So Jim, I would love to switch gears a little bit and talk about your work with the Last Prisoner Project. It's such an amazing organization doing such great work for cannabis prisoners, that your involvement, is just incredible.
Well, my involvement is really inspired by, Mary Bailey and Stephen D'Angelo. These two people work tirelessly with beautiful, talking about a mission from God.
Right.
They have an organization that helps release, nonviolent cannabis offenders. There's 40,000 of them in jail, and it's time to get them out.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's time. We're running businesses on something that they got arrested for. I mean, here's one guy had like 3 pounds of cannabis. They threw him in jail forever.
26 years.
I mean, all he wanted to do was make some money, feed his family. I mean, that family blew up. The number one fear in life is death. Number two fear in life is the collapse of family. Well, most of the trauma that we experience are from the collapse of family. What collapses a family? Incarceration, divorce, losing a job, severe illness in the family. There are so many traumas that everyone is experiencing that I believe everybody's screaming inside. That how do we bring that screaming down? Everybody knows somebody who's struggling, suffering. Well, come on, everybody reaches for medicine. Right. The most readable medicine is not medicine, is alcohol. Alcoholism, addiction. Addiction comes into a family like a snake, and it slowly crawls up the body and squeezes and squeezes and squeezes until somebody dies. And addiction is terrible. The opiate addiction, the alcoholism kills people. Right. Cannabis doesn't do that.
Right. Exactly right. And how many
times I've always said, I was a bouncer here in Chicago. I never broke up a fight between two potheads.
That's right.
Right.
They were just hanging out, talking, probably.
Yeah.
But yet our prisons are full.
Right.
45,000, as you said.
That's right. Hey,
so what they're doing is they're releasing people, and I support that.
Well, I was going to mention Kevin Allen. Kevin Allen is now the next person that the Last Prisoner Project is working to get out of jail right now. Because I'm on their mailing list, and I've known Steve since he started this. In fact, announced it on one of our shows. Met him in Jamaica in 2019. He is, a lot of ways, the face of the cannabis movement. You think that's a good way to look at Steve D'Angelo?
Yeah, yes, and he's moving into a higher realm of activism. I mean, he is 24/7, and an activist, whether it's in Mexico, Europe, and in states with prisoners. He's just moved into this beautiful place, and he's a powerhouse. He really well-spoken, well-spoken, beautiful spirit, and he comes from the heart all the time. And he is on a mission, and he's inspirational to me. So he's taught me an awful lot, and he's a great leader for this project. And by the way, everybody in our business, especially, we need to hire these guys when they come out of jail.
Right.
We need to help them adjust to their new life and help them with their family. I mean, I do believe cannabis, you know, the marriage counselor, all that kind of stuff can help keep families together from collapsing and experiencing trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people who do have that trauma, you know, it helps mitigate the, you know, the wiring, the nervous system that's experienced, that recreates every time you come close to that trauma.
Mm-hmm. And I think working around the plant is so healing as well. Just the energy that you get from the plant that you give to. I mean, it's just it's a beautiful relationship that occurs. And
well, it's changed my life. It's changed my life, this relationship with these girls, you know. And, you know, like girls, you know, well, anybody really, you got to love them. And we love our plants on our farm. And they put out love.
Yes.
I was going to say,
heal.
there's a reason why the flowering plant is the female plant.
Well, the female energy is the most powerful energy. I mean, even if you go back into mythology, you know, all those great gods, you know, Apollo and Zeus, and these powerful male energies, they went to the oracle. The oracle was the boss, and that was a feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And on my farm, you know, the feminine energy on my farm is powerful. And I'm not just talking about the plants. I mean, you can tell when you walk by trees which ones have that feminine energy. I have a sweat lodge right between two large oaks, between the river and Mount McLaughlin and Table Rock. I'm in this vortex of energy where this sweat lodge happens. We have beautiful ceremonies. And the feminine energy is just smarter, warmer, more understanding, you know, and it just tells me what to do because I'm like on purpose. Okay, I will grow. I will cure. What else do I need to do, Oracle? You know, please lead me. And I really believe feminine energy has always led me to where I'm supposed to be. I mean, when I started acting, the first play I was in, I was a football player. I was a tackle. And I never dated any girls because none of them were dating the tackles. They were dating the guys carrying the ball.
Yeah.
When I was in a play, there were 20 people in the theater department and 5 guys and 15 girls.
Right.
So I was like, I kind of like these numbers. And I finally got my first date in high school.
Right.
And so they kind of led me into theater. You know, like, well, I'm just going to follow feminine energy in the theater. And it's now I'm with this beautiful feminine energy on the farm.
Yeah. And I took typewriting in high school for the exact same reason. Because in the 70s, that's what they were teaching. And all the females would go into that typing class. You know, what's that?
I took home ec.
Yeah.
Shameless, Jim, shameless.
Well, it wasn't because of that, but it was an easy class. That's why I took it. But you're there, and there's a lot of girls there too. And what was really great was I was one of the only guys, kind of like in theater and kind of like in choir. There were 40 girls and 8 guys in choir. But those girls, I'll never forget that class. The teacher, she was so lovely to me, and the girl, they cooked for me. I'm here to learn to cook. You know, Jim, let me help you. Let me help. They were so sweet to me.
Just they're natural
life skills and education is what we need more of. Anyway, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim, what advice would you have for growers just starting out, you know, right now? You know, maybe those growers who are a little intimidated to start.
Well,
wisdom?
I don't pretend to have advice for professional growers. That's like chefs giving chefs advice.
What about home growers?
Home growers.
People who just want to be closer to the plant, but who may be just intimidated. They don't know, where to start, or they're just nervous about it. They don't think they have the skills for it.
Well, there's a few things. First of all, it's a weed. You can throw it in your backyard and it will grow. And then you can start the relationship, and the plant will tell you what to do, when to prune, when the leaves get a little brown, not overwatering it, keep it in the sun. It needs to have airflow. But on the growing Belushi, my cousin Chris and I actually go through a competition of growing. And we go to Grow Generation, which is the, Walmart, Home Depot of cannabis growing products. They got all the nutrients, everything. And we do a race and we create a package of a grow kit. And we list it on the show. And Grow Generation was so excited about it that they said, we're going to make that kit and call it a Belushi Farms Grow Kit. So they're doing that right now. So you can literally go into Grow Generation or go online and pre-order for a Belushi Farms Grow Kit, where it's a tent that gives you everything to grow, instructions, and you can grow your 6 plants, your 5 plants, whatever your state allows you to do. Totally indoor, with the lights and the fans. That's one thing you can do. The other advice is just love it, make sure it has nitrogen, nice soil, porous soil. It's like growing tomatoes. You want to give it the best soil. You want to give it the best light. You want to give it the best air. Air is very important. Those girls like the breeze. You don't have to worry about the weather because they're strong. You just don't want to get cold. Too cold that night.
You're sweet. You sound like a dad giving advice for, you're going out on the night on the town and giving advice to the babysitters. Very cute.
Yeah.
He is a dad, and now you're starting to work your kids into the show. And I commend you for that. How challenging is that to have your son and daughter involved in acting, and this is your career? It's like I coached my son in soccer for many years. Okay, it is a challenge to coach your own children. Are you seeing that, or is it again a labor of love?
Well, they're cute kids. They were lovely. You really got to walk a thin line when you're directing your children. I kind of let James direct them because I get too frustrated. I'm going, no, deliver the line like this. And I'm like, that all of a sudden hurts their feelings. It's like, Dad doesn't approve of me. He doesn't love me anymore. It's a little difficult. Can I put you on hold for 1 second?
Absolutely, because Liz and I can talk a little bit. How's that?
Okay.
All right. He's a very busy guy. Liz,
oh my gosh, yes.
What a joy, right?
Oh, wow. It's awesome. I mean, it's just...
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
Come up.
I think let's talk a little bit about, other products.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's talk about, Belushi's product. You mentioned the Belushi.
I want the ice cream.
Ice cream.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. The ice cream. There's Canine by Belushi. So that's a pet product. Really interested in that. Belushi Select is from, is the flower from the Oregon farm. But I'm wondering if you're thinking of moving into topicals at all.
Let's ask him. He's back.
Yeah.
Quick question is, Liz and I were kibitzing about what we've learned so far and how much we've enjoyed so far about your experience from grower to farmer. And I do think that there is a distinction to that. I also want to bring up home grow as a political issue. Jim, we all talk about this as a plant medicine. there are certain states that are bringing in legalization into their state and not allowing home grow. And if it's a true medicinal product, that's kind of counter to what the government's supposed to do. What's your feeling about, shouldn't home grow be part of the legalization process at every state level?
Well, I always thought that was kind of the first way in anyway, even in Colombia. You get in and allow people to grow their 6 plants and see how that works for everybody, and then kind of go from there. I just thought it was naturally that there was a homegrown element to all these laws. Is there not, is what you're telling me?
No.
Yeah, well, New Jersey does not allow home grow. I'm using that state as an example because they just went legal. They're starting to put their regulations in place for adult use. There's a lot of controversy.
We can't get everything at once.
Yeah.
As soon as they're non-threatened, and as soon as they get a little bit more savvy in this world, people are intimidated by it. They'll see the logic of a home grow. I mean, Steve Marks, who runs the OLCC in Oregon, I just love this guy. He runs the regulation, and we talked one time. He goes, "I got a problem." He said, "We got a law here that says you can only buy 27 grams in a day." And he goes, "I got real medical patients that want to use FSO oil. You got to have a pound."
Yeah.
So I this guy's got to, buy 27 grams, 28 days to 30 days to buy his pound. He needs a pound to melt it down for his medicine. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get this medical patient the amount of cannabis at a good price without taxes, and know that he's not buying that to go sell it somewhere. So, there's subtleties to these laws that have to be worked out. But I think the medical patient should be able to grow his own just financially, and also to have the relationship with the plant that you're ingesting for your medicine is a good spiritual circle. But for the states that don't have it, I think they'll get there. I really do, because people really need the medicine.
Absolutely. Liz, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I wanted to just switch gears a little bit about, your product line. Belushi's farm product line specifically, I noticed you have a pet product, with Canine.
Oh yeah, Canine, yeah.
Right?
Well, that one, I only have that on my website. I really did it for my dog, and
but why?
Worked so well.
Yeah. I want to know about it. This is super exciting, and I think also pet products and things like that.
We now have this is Chicago at night.
Okay, that's right.
We've lost our video feed.
I was just going to say, I think it's a good entryway for those folks who may still be shy about.
Thanks.
Awesome. Nice. Pet products are a great entryway for those folks who are still maybe a little scared and stigmatized, about using cannabis themselves. If they find, something that works for their dog. Well,
the thing about the dog is, the thing about this oil that I created is a full spectrum oil. I did it for my dog Taro, whose bones ache because he runs all day at the farm. And one day he just was down. So me and Joel McLean kind of created this CBD oil for him. And in 3 days' time, he was dancing up the stairs, beating me up the stairs. And the thing about animals is you can't give them a placebo.
No.
That it either works or it doesn't.
Right.
You can't do a mind, presentation to him to get his mind in the right place, to accept it. It's just like it works. So it was like, wow, Joel, this stuff really, really works. Maybe I could, there's a lot of canine fans that I have. Maybe we can put on the website for people, for their animals. So I just have it on the website.
Okay, that's incredible. I love it. I'm a canine fan personally.
Oh,
So-
okay.
oh yeah, that's me. But what about topicals? Are you and other products that you're thinking of offering?
Well,
What is
I'm expanding so rapidly.
Mhm.
The
5
TV
states.
show has done an incredible push. I'm in Oregon, Oklahoma, Colorado. We just signed in Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Mohawk Nation in New York, Massachusetts, and we got these little, I call them baby blues, little 0.25 joints in a 6-pack, working man's brand.
Love that.
I got 7.7s in a flip top box, like Danny wanted to like put it in his shirt, so it looks
Oh,
like
yeah.
a bag of marbles. And we also have single joints like Captain Jack. I have a thing called Chasing Magic right now, which is our high-end premium brand. And then we have one called Good Ugly Weed. I mean, it is such a great value. It's 2/8, it's a quarter for the price of one. And
Wow.
it's an outdoor weed. The THC values are really great. It's really good weed. And we're selling the hell out of it because people are coming back because it's like, this is good. Yeah, it's good. It's
like when you
not
find a box
hand
of
trimmed.
wine.
It's not hand trimmed. It's Green Bros makes a great trimmer, so the labor goes down with it. It's not as handcrafted, but it is really good weed. And then we got Bang Chocolate that we just did a collaboration with Blues Brothers Chocolate, and that'll be in a lot of states. Jamie Pearson and Bang is probably the best chocolatier organization that I've met, and I've been doing this for a while. She's terrific, a powerhouse woman.
And a regular on our shows, I might add.
Oh, she's terrific.
Right.
I'm going to see her. I'm going to see her in Spain, in Barcelona.
That's great.
I have
So cool.
just started with these girls, the two Katies down in Tulsa. They make a thing called glazed chocolate, and it's a real premium chocolate. It's so delicious. And they use a full spectrum. They don't do distillate. And they manage to do a full spectrum and still not have the taste of cannabis. I don't know how they do it. I don't ask. And they also have these little chocolate joints that are really great. So we just started with them to expand our SKUs. Oh God, I'm talking to CBD companies now because I'd like to create a salve because a lot of people I know, they were athletes, their knees hurt, their shoulders hurt, knees and shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to create that because I know there's a need for that. And then I like to create a chocolate that's a 1-to-1 with a CBN.
Ooh,
Sleepy time. Sleepy time.
I want to call it "See You in the Morning."
Right.
See you in the morning, because it's such a nice sleep, and sleep is a big deal.
Huge.
And people really complain about sleep, and so I find cannabis does not leave any kind of hangover. Makes you groggy. I mean, those PM things that you can buy in a drugstore over the counter, those things, it's heroin. I can't move the next day if I take that.
Yeah, and then the aftertaste in your mouth, it's like, what crawled up in there and died?
Oh, terrible.
Horrible.
There's we're constantly. I work with Select. We do the Captain Jack vape pen only in Oregon, and we got a problem with it because it's sold out. I mean,
it's a good problem
sold
to have.
5,000 carts like in 3 weeks, and was like, oh man, I can't grow that much. So we're working with Select on vape, working with another Ox in Oklahoma on vape, and a very great organization at Local Roots in Massachusetts. We're creating with them the hash. Now we're going to do the Captain Jack hash, and then we're going to move into joints and other products, and then bring in bang chocolate, so it's constantly moving, and the SKUs are expanding. But right now we're mainly flour, joints, and bang chocolate.
Awesome.
Hey, you mentioned something that I want to go back to about percentage of THC. A lot of people, when they go online and they shop online, they look for the product that has the highest THC percentage. Anybody who's in this industry now is educating the public that doesn't mean that
they don't want to be educated. No. I sat in a store in Oregon. I had 6 strains from the farm.
Yep.
Lovely couple came up and they wanted to know about the strains. And I went through every strain. And I told them the whole cherry pie story and about the low THC and the entourage effect. I told them about the myrcene and how it thins the cellular wall in the brain and gives you, even though it's a low THC, because of the myrcene value, it's like Captain Jack stuff really gets you loaded. You got to be careful. But the THC is 17%.
Right.
But the terpenes are so high, and it's myrcene that entourage effect, trust me. And then he goes, well, what's this one? I said, well, this is our chocolate hashberry. It's 28% THC. The terpene values are not as high as I like, but there's some terpenes in it. I said, I won't touch that stuff because it'll knock my ass out.
Okay.
I mean, I spent 10 minutes with these people. And at the end, I go, what would you like? I talked about the Black Dog OG and how it's good for veterans and it's good medicine. They went, give me the chocolate hashberry. And I went, highest THC level.
Right.
And I said, look, when you drink a bottle of wine, okay, you want 13, 14% alcohol. Mm-hmm. The rest of it's terpenes. You don't want a wine that has 29% alcohol. It's not going to taste good. It's not going to feel good.
Right.
They go, give me the chocolate hashberry. So, I mean, I'm educating them on my feet in dispensaries. They still think they're getting a better deal, think they're getting the stronger stuff, the best stuff with that THC level. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to win this argument.
Right. Well, I mean, what I get concerned about is there are legislators out there actually trying to put limits on THC as they look at the legalization process. And again, that just shows their ignorance and non-educated that it isn't about the percentage of the THC. It's about the interaction with the myrcenes and all the terpenes that are in that.
Well, they don't know that. And by the way, I support it. I think it's great that they limit the THC because too much THC, the psychoactivity, I think can leave a residual on the back end of a little paranoia and a little anxiety. I think pure THC kind of lends itself to what people don't want. People are frightened of cannabis, and that is that paranoia, that anxiety. And so I like I said, the lower THC and the higher terpenes is that chill and that sweetness. And there's no paranoia. And there's rest, there's sociability, and there's medicine. I mean, so I'm not saying I'm for them doing any kind of cap, but I ain't gonna hurt nobody to bring the new consumer to start with a little lower THC level.
It certainly puts pressure on the growers. It certainly does create a product that would be equal to, if not better than.
Well, I mean, look at all the dispensary owners, all the buyers know what you and I know. But the truth of it is, I'll get $2,400 a pound for 2830 THC. And I'll get, $1,200 a pound for 19%. Mm-hmm. So it's business. It's like,
Interesting.
They're reinforcing high THC with the dollars, but that's because their consumers think that's where it's at. So it's the bud tenders that have to explain this. They're like pharmacists. They have to explain.
Right.
Oh, well, if you want to sleep, you want to move over into this brand. If you have anxiety, don't go with the high THC. If you have pain, oh, this one's got myrcene in it. This one's really good. The Black Diamond OG that we have is like perfect. All my veterans use that for spasms that they have from being paralyzed or for PTSD. It brings it down. They can relate to their family. Again, keeping the family from collapsing. I think cannabis is really, really a beautiful, beautiful plant.
We think you're a beautiful, beautiful man, Jim.
Oh, I love talking about this stuff.
Well,
We
I
do.
totally do. And I know, we asked for an hour. We got an hour from you. I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
And you are welcome anytime. And I any messages you'd like me to share with Jamie? Because she actually texted me during this interview.
Oh, I tell her I hope her Spanish is good because I need a translator in Barcelona.
Okay, you got it.
Oh, I'm so jealous. God, I want to be in Spanish.
Man, you Texas girl. That's the way the girls are from Texas. You ever hear that song by Ry Cooder?
Texas girl.
No, that's the way the girls are from Texas.
Why don't you serenade us out?
Well, I know Ry Cooder.
It's a talk song.
Okay.
Well, I met a beautiful girl from Texas. Well, I fell in love. And she said, well, I'll give you the shirt off my back, but if you ever try to leave me, I'll take you out in the back. Because me and my razor will see to that. And of course goes, that's the way the girls are from Texas. That's the way the girls are from Texas. Love them right or leave them alone. That's the way the girls are from Texas. So now the song goes on. She goes, well, I'm married. I married her for my own self-preservation. And then one night I was at the grocery store in the checkout counter. And that was the cutest little girl I'd ever seen. And we got to talking and this and that. And soon we were making love. And I told her, a little time went by, and I told her, well, I think it's time that we part our ways. And she said, well, you should have told me you was married. And she pulled out a pistol. She pulled out a 38 and shot me right between the eyes. She was guilty. I was dead. And you know what that old judge said? Yeah, that's just the way the girls are from Texas. Dismissed.
Jesus.
That's the way the girls are from Texas. Love them right or leave them alone. That's the way the girls are from Texas. From Austin to San Antonio. That's the girls from Texas. That's the way the girls are from Texas.
I love it.
Oh, Jim, you honor us. You honor us on Calling All Growers. You are just an incredible man, and you're doing so much for the movement in so many ways. I'm just grateful.
And a good time.
You carry a 38?
No.
You carry a 38 in your purse?
No, I don't have a purse.
I carry it openly. It's not in my purse. It's
yeah, because that's the way the girls are from Texas.
So you know,
love them right or leave them alone.
That's right. I don't want to know about the women from Massachusetts. I could tell you a few stories about that. Hey, Jim Belushi, what a pleasure to talk with you. Great to give us as much time as you did. I really appreciate it. A reminder.
Nice time.
Hey, and a reminder that we actually have a free growing webinar with some Humboldt County people. That's tonight at 8:00 on our network. And you can obviously go to Pro Cannabis Media and sign up for that today and still get into that growing webinar. And you know what? There are really no experts in cannabis because we're all learning by doing and talking about it and getting in as much information as possible. And I really think that's one of the reasons why we like to bring this kind of interviews to our public, to our followers, to our subscribers. So please like, share, and subscribe. You know all that. For Jim Belushi and for Liz Grow, the host of Calling All Growers, Liz will be back tonight at 8. Thank you for watching. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. We'll see you next time.
And remember this. This medicine is so good that people take it for the side effects.
Live from the Summit Lounge is supported by CNA Stores in Massachusetts, a veteran-owned and family-operated dispensary in Amesbury and Haverhill that has the best selection in the state and a dedication to the community north of Boston.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
In the Weeds live special is supported by Yellow Labs, raising expectations for performance from THC-infused oral sprays of 3 milligrams delivered under your tongue and made by Berkshire Roots, with 2 locations in Pittsfield and in East Boston. Live Green Rush Business of Cannabis Talk Show. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and sometimes host here on the program. Joining me this afternoon and this evening is our good friend from New Jersey. He is our acting chief operating officer. His name is Doug Miller. Hello, Doug.
Hello, Jimmy. How are you tonight?
It was good to see you outside of Zoom.
Yes, that was a crazy event we had, and we'll go into that later. Let's talk
Absolutely,
to our
that was the
Wednesday
Wednesday
we have
night
somebody
live from the summit.
very important today. We have a very important guest to start
That's right.
the show with.
But I just wanted to ease in and let's bring in our very important, we always have a very important guest at 4 o'clock, but in this particular case, it's an old friend who is a very big part of the history of Pro Cannabis Media. His name is Mark Shepard. He is the CEO, executive director. What the heck is your official title? President of NECANN, Mark?
I don't know. I'm just waiting to find out who this important guest is. So let's get on with it.
That would be you.
Oh,
and thank you for joining us. 1 week from today will be the end of the first day of the New England Cannabis Convention at the Heinz Auditorium in Boston. Mark, that's a week away. I am sure you are so ready. You can't wait.
Oh, absolutely, Jimmy. As you know, I mean, we'll start working on next year the day this one's over. So for me, this is the end of week 51 of working on this show. And yeah, very, very much ready for it to happen.
And you've got a great program ready to go for well, at least a great program planned for next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Heinz Auditorium in Boston. The New England Cannabis Convention, by reputation, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, outside of Vegas anyway, trade show convention and also consumer cannabis convention on the schedule on a regular basis. Mark, you've got a great featured speaker, a keynote, which is one of my all-time favorite actors, comedians, and producers, Jim Belushi.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody who we thought about for a few years about possibly coming to NECANN. He obviously has a lot of customers and clients in New England. The schedule just didn't work out for him. He has his own discovery series called Growing Belushi, and they actually film each year in February and March, and we just haven't been able to do it. And this year it worked. So we're really excited to have him come out and talk about his farm and his sort of journey and becoming a big name real cultivator. Not, I hate to even say celebrity brand, because he didn't just slap his name on a brand. He became a cultivator first and kind of earned his reputation, and then opened a brand after he learned what he was doing. So very excited to have him talk.
And that's not all, as they say in the TV world. That's not all. Mark Shepard, what else do you have on your docket for next weekend?
We've had a couple of surprise guests that they're not planned through us, but they're going to be in the booth. Montel Williams is going to be doing his podcast, Let's Be Blunt, from one of the booths on Saturday and Sunday. Calvin Johnson, Hall of Fame receiver from the Detroit Lions, is going to be there, I think, all 3 days. And we just found out today that Cypress Hill is going to be headlining a Saturday night after party, which is kind of cool. And other than that, we've had just a crazy run this year. We actually had to expand the hall. We got the booths up to about 300 booths. We sold out the first week of January. We have about 50 people on a waiting list. So we decided to expand the programming because we're expecting a lot more people. So we're actually, for the first time, doing 5 full programming tracks running all 3 days, in addition to, I think, 5 separate ticket workshops. So it's the most programming and most exhibitors we've ever had at any show.
You are a glutton for punishment, aren't you, Mark Shepard?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Hey, and if you don't have enough room, you just expand. I think that's a great thing. Talk to me a little bit about that, what you were just explaining to the people about the programming platforms as opposed to the breakout rooms, because there is a difference, right?
Yeah, so we have, we've got several different ticket options. If people just want to come and look at the exhibitors, they can just buy an exhibit floor ticket and walk the floor. But we have an all access pass for 3 days that gets you access to all of the speakers, which is 5 programming tracks a day. They're consumer trends, cultivation, business and operations, sales and marketing, technology and innovation. And then the third option on top of that, you could also pay a separate fee to go to one of the workshops. We've got exit to your cannabis business, restructuring a cannabis business. We've got responsible vendor training certification course, and then a practical guide to, say, wellness and yoga and meditation and cannabis combined. So you really kind of have, there's really something for everyone from a speaker standpoint. No matter what you're looking to get into, there's probably a programming track or workshop that works for you.
And it's a 3-day event. You can get a 3-day ticket. I know that. But the other thing I know that you like about this is truly a mix between the actual trade show, the trade, and consumers can come in and enjoy and see what all the hubbub, if you will, is all about with cannabis, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we feel like that's sort of high level, like just 100% high level business that's already covered, like you said, in the show in Vegas. So for us, we feel like this is from a 101 all the way up to the advanced level. You are going to see people, negotiating the purchase of a $50,000 extraction machine on the floor. But you also, if you're a beginning person just learning about medical marijuana, you can go and talk to one of 15 or 20, MMJ licensed outlets about different products and how to get medicine for yourself. So since it's focused on the local market, and you've got new people coming online in Rhode Island and Connecticut, Vermont still in its infancy, and then you have Massachusetts and Maine. So if you're bringing the whole community together, you've got to have content for everything, and since pretty much everybody there is a consumer, even if you're a professional, it's nice to be able to see the products as well.
Yeah. Doug, I'm sure you got a couple of questions from Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, how many speakers about do you have with that many tracks in 3 days worth?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you add in the fact that some of them, they're panels that might have 4 or 5 people, it's just over, it's give or take about 120 different speakers. And, we vet applications for 9 months before the show. We typically get between 600 or 700 applications. And so we're able to curate, we feel like probably one of the best programming schedules in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. 120 speakers you'll learn a lot of knowledge right there.
Yeah.
That's
And you'll also have a lot of fun at this show. I think that's one of the things that I like about all the NECANN conventions, whether they be in New England or now you've branched out to New York and to New Jersey. How big an opportunity is that for NECANN when you see all the new states in what is basically driving distance from your home base just outside of Boston?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Northeast is so unique as compared to the rest of the country. As states come online in the West or even the Midwest, it's great, but yeah, it's not like the Northeast where literally you can touch 8 states in 3 hours, just by driving around. So the fact that there's all those, and every one of them has a different program with different rules, so you really do need a show in each market dedicated to the rules and opportunities in that. So it's really kind of fun to start in the Northeast.
What number show is this for you up here in Boston?
It's our 9th year, but our 8th show because we lost 2020. And that picture behind me is that's our first show at the Castle in Boston in 2015. It's a good reminder of me of how things began and what the market was like and what the community was like. Pre-rec. That was 6 months before rec was legalized in Boston.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about the NECANN Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited to be doing our 4th year of the Cup. We pretty much make it open to anyone. It's obviously a lot easier to enter if you're in Massachusetts. There's certain legalities of transporting products across the border. But we do an open competition. This year we have separate categories for home growers and for licensed facilities because we didn't want to just have one licensed facility win best flower and not be able to recognize the best home grower. So we split it this year in hopes that we'd get enough entries to validate that. And we got close to 500 entries to the event. And on Saturday on the floor at 4 o'clock, we're going to be announcing the winners of the Cup, which we're very excited about.
And you also have those community awards too, Mark, that a lot of people really enjoy. And I like the different categories that you've been in. It's certainly a wide variety of categories.
Yeah, we've had to obviously expand as the programs have expanded. Like for the first time we're doing recreational dispensaries in some of the newer states where it wasn't a category before. It gets people, kind of excited, animated. Sometimes it starts feuds and whatnot. But the whole idea of doing those awards is really just to kind of get some names out there and bring everybody together so that we can everybody can see that they're not out there by themselves, as they're trying to get work done in the industry. It's like, oh, wow, look at this room. It's filled with people who they share ideals and passions with me and let some of those people up on a stage. Put a spotlight on them and get some appreciation.
Hey, I know MJ Biz did this the last couple of years. They've kind of categorized their booths, and it's gotten some, not completely great feedback. Are you doing anything like that? Do you put all your growing area in one area, the lighting in one area, the ancillary companies over here, the plant touching? Are you doing anything like that? How do you make up where everybody goes?
No, I mean, everybody can do what they want. I'm sure Emerald Media doesn't care what I think. I think that's probably one of the most horrible ideas I've ever seen. I get the idea of why it makes it maybe easier to navigate a gigantic floor if you're an attendee, but I just look at it this way. If I'm a lighting company and I'm in a row and I'm the 9th booth in the row and the 8 booths before me are lighting companies, pardon my language, what the hell, why am I here? How many people are going to make it to the 9th booth in the row to hear my pitch? No, 0. And then just, we have a booth in MJ Biz. So obviously, as I'm sitting here telling them they're terrible, I like that show enough. I actually buy a booth there. But I'm just in services. But my company, who I do conventions, I actually can help almost any business in there. But if somebody doesn't feel like I'm interested in seeing new services, they're not even going to come to my section. So I found that it wasn't surprising to me that they did that the first year that MJ Biz relinquished control to the new ownership. MJ Biz, when they owned it, never did that. We do a tiny bit, like a lighting company buys a booth, there's an empty booth next to them, and then a lighting company in California that doesn't know who that company is best, they buy the one right next to it. I'm going to move them. I actually don't want them next to each other, because what's the point?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Doug, you got something for him?
Yeah, honestly, as a consumer and being a business owner, so I do the conventions often, and I love to walk around and meet all the different companies and see the products and keep myself in the loop. But yeah, I think it's a terrible idea that they did that, because as a consumer, it's more fun to go from a lighting company to a grow company to see seeds and then just constantly change it up. Because again, like you said, if you look at 7 lighting companies, they're generally the same lighting column. I mean, you can only have so many different types of lights, and you get each pitch, and by the 5th person, you're checking out of lights and you're going over somewhere else. And I just think you're losing the engagement of the consumer with the business tables that are there. And that's why they're there, is to pitch to people. I think you're right on when you said that. And I, as a consumer too, I think it's a terrible idea. It's more fun to engage with everybody just as an open place.
Fun's a key word when you go to the New England Cannabis conventions, because they've always kind of separated themselves. There's always seems to be more fun. And this year I've noticed, Mark, I don't know why, but I've been invited to a whole bunch of parties on Friday and Saturday night, perhaps the most I've ever been invited anywhere. That being said, are you starting to see more ancillary events in the after the conventions open that day than you have in the past?
Yeah, I mean, this year, I talked about the expansion, the number of exhibitors, whatever. I've seen a bit of an explosion on this event, and there's always been some ancillary events. But Jimmy, same as you. Like you can get a pulse of it. Like, I've seen 2 or 3. It means there's probably 5 or 6. This year, I've seen a dozen. And there's plenty. They don't reach me. Like the person, I'm not a customer, so why would they invite me? They know I can't come anyway, because I'm going to be at the hall till 9. But I do think it's kind of a sign. It's something that I think that you kind of aspire to as an event, that people think, even if the event itself isn't perfect for us, we know everybody's there, so let's do an off-site one. And I obviously look at the industry very tightly. I go to about 30 conventions a year, including R7. And, I've asked the question across LinkedIn and a couple of things. I'm pretty well convinced that it's the 2nd biggest event in the country. Obviously, we're nowhere near MJ Biz, but, that's in Vegas and it's 9 months later. So I do think that, this show in Boston, the New England Cannabis Convention, still growing in its 8th year. I think we've reached a level now where people feel they have to be there. And you do use those after parties as a pulse. Like they couldn't get a booth, but they had to have an event.
That's right. I just want to go and have a party. I understand that mentality too. So, on this show, when we look at the cannabis industry and the business of it, we hear a lot of doom and gloom. Mark, you probably have a better pulse of the industry than perhaps anybody, because you're literally direct selling to both ancillary and plant touching consumers and businesses in this space. Are you seeing any decline?
Well, what you're seeing is a profit decline, right? And so, and it's a funny thing, Jimmy, because I come from media, so I come from newsprint actually. So I'm sort of familiar. Maybe I'm like a little nervous. Boy, I enter an industry and it crashes. So I look at it, but it's different. Like in media, you looked at it, and for so long in newsprint, you open a newspaper, it was 70% margins. Make $100, keep 70. It was fantastic. So as it started to phase out from the internet, the people just kind of shrugged their shoulders and were like, no, now our margins are only 50%. No, now they're only 30%. Who cares? And they didn't care. In cannabis, it wasn't quite that big, but the people that are struggling and where all the doom and gloom is going to come from is the people whose investments are just based on those ridiculous margins. Like, this business is going to work as long as an ounce is $400. All right, well, you're going to go out of business. Ounces are going to be $90 soon. But if you really look at it, if you can't sell a plant at $90 an ounce and make a profit, you built a bad business. You know, the tomatoes don't cost $90 an ounce, you know, but they make profit. So there's plenty of room. The thing people get caught up in is they just look at growth. So you sit there and you say, wow, the cannabis industry didn't grow. And I'll make up a number like, oh, it was 20 billion last year and it's only 21 billion this year. There's no growth. But I'm like, no, it grew tremendously, but the average cost of an ounce got cut in half. You know, so where it was 400, now it's 200. I'm like, yes, how's the gross number of sales? It's actually going to go down, gross sales, while the industry grows. So all the new businesses that are opening in Massachusetts, these delivery businesses, the new dispensaries, the cultivators, they're all coming online. They're opening up. They've got new employees. They've got new businesses. They're putting money back in the thing, but they're just not making the margins that all these larger companies were touting 5 or 6 years ago. Does that mean it's a failure? No, it just means those unsustainable margins are going away. So people just have to adjust their expectations, and then they'll see that it's a success.
Yeah. Doug, you know, you're in the business. I mean, the margins are very slim no matter where you are because of all the compliance and regulations that are out there as well. Are you looking forward to this, Doug?
I mean, you know, I always say, Jimmy, you have to be able to pivot. If you can't pivot in business, then just hang up your shoes, because you're just not going to make it. It's just one of them things where you have to be able to, and especially in this business, I've done a lot of different industries, and this industry is the craziest, again, because of the regulations and the laws just don't follow business structure, and it's literally impossible. It's almost set up impossible for a business to succeed. You have to be very smart, and like you were saying, the investors, people with money that don't understand the actual cannabis industry, think that they know business, and that's fine. You can know all the business you want, but if you don't know the cannabis business, you're going to fail. And you can throw money at it all day you want, all you want every day, and it won't matter, because you'll just keep losing more money. And until you understand how the industry works, and the fact that you need really good growers with knowledge to grow the best product that you can grow, so that you can make the best medicinal products and cannabis products out there. And the larger MSOs and companies, they just want to grow large scale for profit, and then it ends up becoming a disaster. And I think we're seeing that right now.
Yep.
Hey, Mark, if you had to pick between one of the 3 days, which do you think is going to be the biggest day? What's a can't miss day? And I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead, answer it.
Well, I mean, there isn't actually a simple answer, because it's going to depend on who you are. You know, if you're in the industry and you're really looking to network for your career and do all that stuff, I'd recommend Friday, because if I'm in the industry, I'm not working for the weekend. If I'm only going for one day, I'll take my work day and I'll go Friday. Saturday traditionally is going to have the most people. So if you're looking for just that experience of like, wow, everybody's here, you know, you're going to see Saturday. And the programming goes the same way too. Very, very heavy business focused on Friday. Then it's going to branch out on Saturday. Sunday, you know, is a great day for people that maybe have any kind of anxiety. You know, if going shoulder to shoulder down aisles and standing crushed next to people, that you can't do that, you'll see a lighter crowd on Sunday. You know, I wish it was packed every single day, but there's enough people to justify Sunday, but you have breathing room, you know, and you're not going to feel as stressed, and it's not going to be as frantic. So really depends what you're looking for, which day is best for you.
Well, you know, the history of pro cannabis media all began at the 2018 New England Cannabis Convention, when I wandered into the Heinz Auditorium for the first time, and my eyes like went, whoa. I had no idea how big and expansive this industry really was. It was also the first day that I did my first ever podcast for In the Weeds. It was with a guy that I think all of us on this call know, Stu Zakem, who of course is the little brother to the late Lenny. who the bridge in Boston was named after. And Stu actually called me this week. I think we talked for about 45 minutes. I know that's not a shock for anybody who knows Stu and myself on the phone, because yeah, we both like to talk. But I so thank you for continuing, for surviving the pandemic, which I know was not an easy thing for anybody in the trade show business. And now you're on the other side, you've survived, and now you're back thriving again. And I congratulate you on that, because I know how hard you've worked at getting back to where you wanted to be without that darn virus that drove us all nuts. So
absolutely, and same to you, Jimmy. Yeah, like anybody that was in that kind of, any kind of industry where you're interacting with people and talking to people, it was tough going. So, for all of us out on the other side, fantastic. And these shows kind of trying to become a celebration, a survivalist celebration, which is great.
Absolutely. And the website, you can go and get tickets. Go ahead.
It's just NECANN.com, NECANN.com. Ticket prices actually go up tomorrow. So if you want to get online today before midnight, you'll get the discounted price. After tomorrow, you're going to pay.
I get you. That's the cost. That's business, man. That's right. How it works. Early bird has to get the worm. We found that out with our Wednesday night event. Hey, Mark Shepard from NECANN, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you next weekend, and I look forward to it like I always do. We're going to have more of Green Rush Live on a Friday afternoon after these very important messages from our very important sponsors. Don't go away.
Live from the Summit Lounge is supported by CNA Stores in Massachusetts, a veteran-owned and family-operated dispensary in Amesbury and Haverhill. It has the best selection in the state and a dedication to the community north of Boston.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
In the Weeds live special is supported by Yellow Labs, raising expectations for performance from THC-infused oral sprays of 3 milligrams delivered under your tongue and made by Berkshire Roots, with 2 locations in Pittsfield and in East Boston.
Check the clock. It's a 4 o'clock start to Green Rush Live on a Friday afternoon. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. We've been here at this time slot for almost 3 years. That's right. This is probably the longest continuing live show that we've produced at Pro Cannabis Media. We're very proud to talk about the business of cannabis on this program. I have a very interesting show ahead of us, but first I want to bring in my guest host, Rick Thompson, who of course is a correspondent on our Weed Talk News show and the executive director of Normal for Michigan. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Jimmy. I'm always happy to be on this show. It's a great time on Friday.
And we are welcoming in a great guest, again, courtesy of our friends at the Morrison Agency out of California. He is only about 3,000 miles away from me, with a pit stop at what, 1,500 to you, Rick, or 1,800 from Michigan to California?
I hate to think about it. It's a long way.
We'll call it
You know one
2200.
thing, you and I had to scrape ice this week, and I actually found out George Sadler is with us. His company is called Gelato. And George, you actually admitted that in Southern California, you can't find an ice scraper, can you?
You know what? I didn't have time to go look for one, but I highly doubt that you're going to find one, at least down here. And you were talking about not wanting to put your swear words out there. So I left mine as well, but I wanted to make sure that you understood that I felt your pain. Believe it or not, in Southern California, a few days ago, I had to scrape ice, and I used one of my kids' toys to do it.
There is nobody that's going to be sympathetic to your cause from the Northeast. I just want to say, okay.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm going snowboarding next week.
There you go. You know what? As long as you are making the most of it, we all know about that Southern California scene. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your company, Gelato. And the best thing that I was impressed when I read about your bio is this is a family-run business, correct?
Yeah. And so anybody that does know, we used to own a company called Platinum Vape, and we sold that 2 years ago, roughly. And so we started Gelato, and we are a family-based. My son is my business partner for the last 14 years. And then my other son, Nathan, which is now a business partner with one of our stores, is also functioning within this company as well. And my daughter, Maddie, is as well heading up the part of the sales part of what we're doing.
Well, that's awesome, and I know the challenges of the family business because I'm a descendant of one,
Okay.
and turned it down when Dad called me in 1988 and offered it to me, and I said, "Look, I'm a sportscaster. I'm not going to be an office furniture salesperson." And I look back at that conversation almost on a daily basis now, because we all know it's a challenge to run a business and build that business, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I I've always kind of done my own thing, and my father, which owned an electrical company for almost 40 years, he was kind of on the step side of that. And just fast forwarding, I was living in Michigan with my family. I got divorced and kind of took some time and came out here. My dad said, "Hey, at that point in time, I owned some drive-through coffees and a restaurant in Michigan." And my dad said, "Hey, why don't you come out here and just kind of spend some time here?" And he kind of swindled me into the business side of which I'd kind of off and on been a part of a little bit growing up with him. And then all of a sudden I found myself as the vice president of the company, which I have no idea how I ended up in that situation. And my dad's over in France and he's doing his thing. And I was the most miserable I've ever been. Even outside of the divorce, I was so miserable. And then I realized that, he really wasn't wanting to be a part of it. And so when he came back into town off and on, I'd kind of express it to him. And then finally I'd said, you have no interest. Let's just sell this thing. Cause it's not for me. And, somewhere secretly, I think just like every father, he thought, oh, maybe my kid will take this over and run this, down to Legacy Town or something. And I had no intentions at all. And so, we sold it. And that's kind of how that whole thing had sparked back in the day with Platinum Vape. Was my son, Cody, which was in college at the time, was in a business class, and somebody had done a business model on growing cannabis. And he came into my office, and we probably had about a month left before we were fully sold out of that business after 40 years. And he said, "Hey, you ever thought about growing cannabis?" And I said, "No, it's never been anything, business wise." And he persisted. And so anyways, we took after we closed that up, I kind of sat back for a bit, and he was, continued to look at it, and we ended up both getting our caregiver's license and, that stuff that was going on, and started the first company. And six plants in a garage, had no idea what to do, how to grow anything. Miraculously, it turned out, and it kind of bloomed from there. And no pun intended, but we went from there to deliveries to stores, and we turned 6 plants into about $140 million a year business between California, Arizona, and Oklahoma and Michigan, of course, which was our biggest market.
And it says you're in 400 dispensaries between California and Michigan. And Rick obviously is from Michigan. And Rick, I know that the market in Michigan always seems to be in a state of flux. I'm sure you have a few questions you'd like to ask George. Go ahead.
Well, George, first of all, I've already met your rep here in Michigan. I have her card here,
Oh.
Skylar Peggy. She's fantastic.
Great.
Yep. So we've been into some different industry events together. But Michigan is still a $2.3 billion industry. And although it's
Crazy.
maybe challenging for some of the people, I mean, really, it's when you can differentiate yourself from everybody else, you do still stand a chance to gain valuable shelf space and really command some market share. One of the things I was curious about, gelato is the name of a strain. I mean, clearly gelato has fostered a lot of different strains throughout the cannabis verse. How do you balance the whole identity issue between trying to establish that gelato as a company name versus someone else who might be selling a strain that has the name gelato in it and it not have anything to do with you?
Well, I mean, it is kind of funny that we ended up with that name, and my son, I'd like to take credit for it, but he's the one that came up with gelato. And I don't think it was truly based off the strain. I have to pick his brain on how that came to be. There's a big story beyond that. But how crazy is it that we were able to trademark, obviously not federally, but we were able to trademark gelato, and then extensively trademark past that with logos and everything else, which we never thought that it wasn't already taken. And so the biggest confusion that we have, which we've kind of ridden with, is gelato, the ice cream gelato. That seems to be where there's a lot of confusion on what we are, or especially in the beginning, people thought we were like a medicated ice cream. And, obviously we've walked past that, but as far as the strain goes, that's always been a mainstream strain. And, so we ended up with the name, and we've carried it through there. And so our motif is that look. I mean, we do have like some decorations of ice cream carts and that type of thing, but no, I mean, we've been really fortunate to be able to trademark gelato, which I never.
The marketing's fun on that. There's a lot of ways you can brand identify, working off that whole confection and cannabis connection there.
Yeah.
Now, you're in Southern California, and Rick and I do a regular news show every week. And we know what's going on in California with the different rule changes and what have you. You've got a company that manufactures your concentrates, your edibles, your pre-rolls, your flour. It's all there. And you're doing, supposedly, according to your release anyway, you're one of the fastest growing cannabis companies in California. What's your secret, George? My secret? Why would I give that out on this show? Because that's why we ask those kind of questions. By the way, you can BS as much as you want. We're going to believe anything you say. That's all I can do, I guess, is BS, because I just did a podcast last week, and it was kind of the same question. I said, I don't really know. I'll be honest with you. I think we have retained relationships, and the way that we are able to maneuver through all this, we really have gotten to the point of understanding the store's needs. That's the most important to us, is how do we work together with the store to make the store profitable? We can only do so much, obviously, but we really pair up with these stores. And I think we're in, I don't know, it's 430 or 440 stores in California alone. And our, I don't know how you say it, but per store is about 130% higher than any other companies that are on a shelf in a store. And so to us, that our relationship driven company, and the salespeople and everybody that's a part of this team has done a really good job of making sure that we pay attention to what's happening at the store level, and not just with the buyers, but more so with the bud tenders and the people that are really touching our product, and that translates into the customers. So I'd love to be able to sit back and say, this is what we're doing, but I can't tell you. I really don't know. Well, and it says I shouldn't be asking you that anyway, because you have no secret code. But it seems to me if you're working with your family, you've already had some
Yeah.
relationships in place. Now you're in the atmosphere, I'm going to guess, in your company is a very positive, family-oriented kind of relationships, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Does that lend itself to some conflict sometimes?
I'll be honest with you. The conflict that if you're talking about the old conflict between the family members, my son and I have not had an argument, and I mean an argument or a disagreement, business or personal, in probably, if I were to take a guess, 7-8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And my other son, Nathan, which he's part owner in our gelato store up in Lake Elsinore. I don't know that we have ever had a disagreement. I mean, we have disagreements, but I mean, there's just no arguments. We've really grown to appreciate each other. And that started way back in the day. No, don't get me wrong. My son, Cody, and I, when we first started, we had a lot of disagreements. And what we did was we really found to stay in each other's lane and stay out of each other's lane and stay in our own lanes. And we were able to work that way early on to understand, what each one of us was going to do. And I said, listen, I've been running business my whole life, and I don't want to deal with the money anymore. I don't want to deal with that side of it. So you take that, I'll take the infrastructure, I'll take, and we combine each other on the marketing and the ideas and the concepts. And he's amazing when it comes to the marketing side of this, and the branding that we're doing is, we have now, I think, 170 SKUs. He's just done an amazing job with that. And it's kind of nice too, because to see my other son and daughter starting to become a part of that is pretty cool. And we are getting ready to launch, believe it or not, I mean, non-cannabis related, but we are launching a tequila. And so we are, as a family, plus, I mean, everybody here is a family. We're all flying down to Jalisco and doing the whole agave thing. And it's really kind of cool to see my other son and daughter, being a part of something like this for us, that's new, and we're all doing this together. So super excited about that.
I love it. Hey, Rick, you know how everybody in this industry has an edible story. You also, looking back, have a tequila story. I don't know about you, but I know I do.
Everybody that reached my age certainly does. I know.
It's funny because one of my security guards downstairs says, hey, he's from Mexico, and he caught me on the way in. He said, hey, your son Nathan, I told him that I'd get him a bottle, and but he hasn't been in today. He's up at the store. I said, okay, I'll take it. So he runs down, he grabs me this bottle, and he's got it in a brown bag, and he said, okay, now listen, what they told me at the store was, if you drink all this, you're going to find your pants down at your knees. I said, I think any alcohol you drink this much, you're going to find your pants at your knees.
If you could feel your knees, that's actually a good sign. Hey, George, as I'm reading your bio and your background, one of the things that really stuck out to me was your opinion about institutional investing, because in the cannabis space, everybody's looking for capital. They're willing to give up equity. They want debt financing, whatever it takes. You have a little bit different approach, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of naturally came in play for us because we didn't come from money, and so when we bootstrapped this thing, like I said, in six plants in our garage, $24,000 worth of equipment for two, father and son that had no idea what they were growing, and we YouTubed everything. We didn't understand the financing process, especially for cannabis, and that there was money out there, and we just naturally started. We continued to just put the money back into this company at that time, and our thing was, and I told my son, I always want to be debt free, and so back in the day, the big thing is people fronting you marijuana and whatnot. And when we got into our first store, we had that available to us, but I was very diligent about saying, look, you don't want to owe these people money. When they come in, let's pay for everything. And it just, thankfully it stuck, and it compounded as we went along. And $5 turns into 50, turns into 5,000, turns into 500,000. It's not that easy, but I'm just, explaining the fact that we lived within our means and we did business within our means. And I was very adamant to my son that, yes, I know we all want to be driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and that time will come down the road. But right now, that's not the case. And so we really enjoyed the business as we were growing it. And it wasn't rapid by all means. I mean, we're talking, 13 going on 14 years now. And it took us about 7 to 8 years to get to the point where we were doing 80 to 100 million. But, keep in mind, we invested everything back into the business. We weren't living beyond our means, and the business was the biggest point of what we would put the money to be in front of us. And our employees, the same thing, adamantly making sure that everybody was taken care of. And so now what you see over the past years, and I always go back to MedMen, and those guys were great, back in the day, and being rated as the Apple of cannabis and the first $1 billion, retail store and whatnot. And my son was just like, wow, like, look at this. And I said, yeah, look at it, but understand it's a lot of paper involved. And yes, there's a lot of money that's going out, but what's really being done to secure that investment is where you're going to see down the road. And of course, 4 or 5 years later, we see that tide kind of come back in, and now, a lot of issues. And that's what we're seeing now, is we're just seeing there's such a rush for people to become like these big icons in this industry, when really you have the time. I mean, we're in the infant stage still of this business, and don't rush it. Don't, if you're going to take investments, I understand, take the lowest security investments that you can. And typically that's friends, family, and whatnot, because they're going to hold you more accountable than, being a public company and just taking, unknown money. And I've watched companies, and I've watched companies secure $75-100 million. And these guys are flying around in jets, and all of a sudden you start to see a decline, and they can't weather through that. And there's companies that just recently have pulled out of a few states, and California, Colorado, and I think Oregon was one of the companies. And I don't understand, for a company of that size, to pull out of these markets, which are huge markets. And then here we are, as a company that's 10 months now back into this. And, the numbers that we're doing are just absolutely amazing. And they're bigger than the numbers we were doing previously. But, we're very concentrated on slow growth. And, I think the problem that you see now is there's so many people coming into this industry, or in the industry, that for some reason they think like the wheels are on fire behind you. So you just got to move as quick as you can and get some money and get out. And we got a long time in this. Like, I'm looking through, my kids' years and their kids' years. And, we want this to be something long-term, and we have that. It's just the investment side of it now. You're just seeing so many people taking this money, and they don't know what to do. What are you going to do with $40-50 million?
Spend it. It's easy to spend money. It's easy to spend money. It's just not easy to make it, right? Or
exactly.
Right? But you figured that out, and I give you a lot of credit. So I want to give you an opportunity to plug your website here. And are any plans coming to the East by any chance?
Yes, and that's in the works right now. And we're, once again, I mean, we're kind of a slow developer. We do have something that's under contract right now. I can't fully disclose that, but we are heading out there. I'll be on I think my son and I will be on a flight out there in the next month or so. And I think the contract is, if I were to ask our attorney, I think it's done. Of course, we're in Michigan, and a couple other places that we're kind of tiptoeing through the waters of licensing agreements, and we don't want to get too carried away on it, but we do have people that want to license it. So yes, so the answer is yes, we are working that direction.
Yeah. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, when you have product like that and you license out the recipes, if you will, that's interstate commerce, as far as I can tell. That being said, we know that you can't cross state lines with the flower, but you can grow the same cultivars in each state and then create these recipes. Isn't that what? Yeah. Which
and that's the hardest thing to do, to be honest with you. If it was, how great it would be to have interstate commerce, and then we could ultimately be in 15 states in 2-3 years. But you have to take the juju has to go with it, and so we're very adamant that we are a part of that, and in maintaining the family, if you want to call it that, like this atmosphere that we have, and that's generated in through Michigan already as it is. We want to make sure that that's maintained in this brand, and that's why we did this, was to bring a kind of a fun light to cannabis and allow people to be a part of something that it's not just for males, it's not just for females, it's everybody can take part in this.
Absolutely. And the company website is gelatocannaco.com, right? And they can find out more about George Sadler there and check out his gelato goods and all the different lines that he is out there moving into different states. So next time you go to a dispensary, don't be afraid to ask, when's the gelato line coming to Massachusetts, to Maine, to Michigan? Well, Michigan, you're already there. So, but that's what you want. And of course, that New York market is opening up too, which is going to be fascinating to see if they can actually get rid of the 1,100 legacy growers and storefronts in Manhattan. Okay. Which is just crazy to me, but
it is. I was there not too long ago, and I had my wife and kids, and, we were walking down and enjoying the New York, and I looked to my right, and there's a van sitting there, and I realized they're selling weed out of that van, and it's just parked right on the side of the street. And I went over, I said, are you CBD? No, we're everything. What do you need? What do you want? I was like, so you're selling everything? Yeah. And then she kind of opened up one of the sides, said, yeah, we've got everything you think of, edibles, pre-rolls, and this and that. I said, are you licensed? And she said, well, what's the definition of licensed? I said, okay. And then I walked down as we went. We were there for probably 4 days, 3 or 4 days, I can't remember. And they're on every corner.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, we couldn't get away with that. Although we're sitting on about 1,600, illegal dispensaries in the state of California, nothing compares to that. But I'm excited to see how this flows through New York, because as everybody knows, if New York and California are on the same level, a lot of things happen in between. And I think federally, it could push things a lot quicker, and it's proven to be. New York and California need to level up for these things to go through. So I'm super happy to see that go. And, we're anxious to be able to help in any way that we can, to be a part of that for sure. But they got a little work to do.
Yeah, you think law enforcement doesn't want to deal with it's an absolute mess. I love the story. We had it last week in We Talk News that there's actually an illegal dispensary 400 feet across the street from New York City Hall, where the mayor works. And
is it really?
Yeah. Oh God, yes. You can check it out on last week's We Talk News. Or the week before. And that's what it's like. But George, thank you so much for coming on, joining us. Appreciate it. Please let us know if you are coming east, or certainly when you go back to your Michigan roots.
Yeah,
you could always. I'm sure Rick will be happy to hang out with you.
As much as you might not want to think so, I'm excited about getting out of California. Off and on.
Well, it is a different planet, okay?
That's true.
It's a different planet, and we totally get it. We got to take a break, and of course, it's a little bit after the 4:20 hour. We usually play the Jonathan Edwards song "Shanty" at that time. I'm sure we're going to hear it. When we come back, we're going to have what we call Freeform Friday. All right, that's what's happening over the next few 90 minutes of the show.
How provocative. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I stole it from the sports radio station in town. All right, we're going to be back after this. Don't go away. Green Rush Live continues after this. Coming up on We Talk News this week, Oklahoma advocates lose a legalization question at the ballot box, while Delaware and Hawaii move their bills towards approval for adult use of cannabis. So, who will be the 22nd legal state in the U.S.? To reschedule cannabis or deschedule cannabis? That is the question, and the DOJ is working on that. And finally, a majority of Americans believe cannabis should be legal and tobacco should be banned. All that and state to state, coast to coast, cannabis news on We Talk News. Next.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and this is We Talk News. Since it's International Women's Day, our regular news anchor, Elena Pinto, has the day off. So please bear with me. Our top story this week is the race to 22. What do I mean by that? Well, there are now 21 legal adult use cannabis states in America. So who will be the 22nd? We know it won't be Oklahoma, but Hawaii and Delaware have now advanced their bills into their legislature, and they're ready to establish an adult use market. We also know now that Oklahoma advocates will have to go back to their elected representatives to get adult use passed, since a vote to add that question to the ballot failed badly. In that Oklahoma special election, the measure to legalize adult use was beaten 62% against to 38% for. Now, despite that defeat, the Oklahoma cannabis industry already has 2,300 dispensaries and is second to California for the amount of medical dispensaries licensed and open. Why? Because they have 400,000 registered medical patients in that state of Oklahoma. The so-called green rush towards legalization has certainly been slowed in the U.S. This is now the fourth rejection of cannabis legalization questions at the ballot box in the last 4 months. Arkansas and both Dakotas suffered defeats at the polls, while Maryland and Missouri approved it and are up and operational. For our first regional report, let's go to Michigan, where a vertically integrated cannabis company is now in receivership. Rick Thompson has that story and more.
Hello again, everyone. This is the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News. Let's begin. Well, the only story worth covering this week is the death of Green Peak Incorporated, also known as Skymint. Now, I do not take joy in another man's demise, but in this case, I'm making an exception. You remember Green Peak. They came on the cannabis scene and immediately tried to kill the medical marijuana law as we know it. They called caregivers filthy names and decried the quality or safety of their products, then continued that assault by trying to have the legislature strip adults of their home cultivation rights. Green Peak owner Jeff Radway came after me and a few others personally. We initiated a boycott of their retail stores and their cannabis, which forced them to change their name to Skymint. They used their lobbying power through the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association to bully forth changes that they wanted, but we stopped them. Now, the MCMA is a defunct organization who died in shame and whose actions remain clouded in suspicion, and Green Peak Incorporated is following their lead. Enough about history. Let's look at the real situation Green Peak is in. Skymint revenues have fallen from $356,000 per day in April to $184,000 per day just 9 months later. They're behind on their tax payment. They owe $4 million before the end of this month to the state. In November, they had to borrow $5 million to cover delinquent taxes. Now, they've borrowed so much money they can never pay it back. They agreed to some crazy terms for their loans, too. A Canadian company called Tropics loaned Green Peak $70 million in 2021 so they could buy 315 Cannabis. Now, the terms of that $70 million loan included a 12.5% interest rate compounded monthly. Who says yes to that kind of a deal? Jeff Radway does. And I guess he was just distracted because an excerpt from the lawsuit claims he was having extramarital affairs with multiple females at his company, including his director of retail operations. According to the excerpt from the lawsuit, Radway used Green Peak funds to pay a settlement due to one of his mistresses, then unilaterally decided to give the retail director a raise and a promotion. When the CFO reported Radway to Human Resources for having affairs with his employees, he fired the CFO and fired the head of Human Resources, but then gave them huge golden parachutes as exit gifts to keep them quiet. The lawsuit says, and I quote, Radway operated GPI as his personal piggy bank. And the one thing pigs like to do most is get dirty. Now, Canadian creditor Tropic has sued Green Peak in Ingham County Court, claiming Green Peak is losing $3 million every month. They owe them more than $127 million. A second creditor, Meridia Holding, has sued Green Peak in Oakland County Court, claiming mismanagement of the company and providing misleading financial data. A receiver has been appointed by the state, as reported by Crane's Detroit Business, and that ain't great. A receiver's job is to stop the depreciation or migration of assets, which means they're there to stop Green Peak from damaging the buildings and stealing things which belong to the people they owe money to. I expect to see padlocks on the doors of SkyMint retail centers and cultivation buildings ASAP. Now, I feel sorry for the people employed by SkyMint who will be out of a job, but I don't feel sorry for Radway or his leadership team. They deserve what's coming to them. And that's it for the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News.
Did you happen to watch Saturday Night Live on NBC this past week? Kansas City Chiefs tight end and two-time Super Bowl champ Travis Kelce was the host. In his opening dialogue, actually, I guess it would be a monologue, Kelce shared that in his sophomore year at the University of Cincinnati, he was suspended from the team for testing positive for weed. That little issue hurt Kelce's draft status as the surefire first rounder dropped to the third round and was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, since then, he's had a very successful all-pro NFL career. Kelce said, "So it just goes to show you, if you smoke weed and you're bad at school, you can still win the Super Bowl twice." We now have a new New York correspondent joining us from the Big Apple. Her name is Pam Schmiel, and she hosts a podcast and does freelance reporting in the nation's #1 market. Here's Pam's New York Cannabis Report for this week.
I'm Pam Schmiel, host of the Mary Jane Society podcast with the New York City Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. $1 billion down the drain. That's what New York farmers are about to lose if they don't sell the 300,000 pounds of weed they're sitting on. It's a challenge because New York only has 4 legal dispensaries open, and there are no announcements of new ones opening in the coming days. So what's the holdup? Well, you may remember New York is rolling out social equity dispensary licenses first to give them a head start in the marketplace. And DASNY, the state-appointed agency, was appointed to secure retail space and build out the dispensaries, is having trouble finding locations. In addition, DASNY was supposed to raise $150 million to fund the social equity entrepreneurs and has yet to raise a dime. And at last month's budget meeting, Governor Hochul avoided questions about why no money has been raised and what they plan to do about it. And strangely enough, the Office of Cannabis Management recently announced they're doubling the number of social equity licenses from 150 to 300. So no money to fund the entrepreneurs, no locations for their dispensaries, but let's double the number of licenses. New York is doing the right thing by approving the social equity licenses first. But the reality is, while they champion these applicants, they are holding up the industry for all because of their mistakes. That's this week's New York City Cannabis Report. I'm Pam Schmiel with the Mary Jane Society podcast, reporting for Weed Talk News.
Now it's time for the Massachusetts Cannabis Report, sponsored by Holyoke Cannabis. Here's Jimmy Young with that. Oh, wait, that would be me, right? Sorry about that. All right, this weekend in Boston, Massachusetts is one of the largest cannabis trade shows east of Las Vegas. It's NECANN, or the New England Cannabis Convention at the Heinz Auditorium. Mark Shepard is the CEO of NECANN, and this show has expanded quite a bit over the years, and it's a can't miss on the cannabis trade calendar. You've got a great featured speaker, a keynote, which is one of my all-time favorite actors, comedians, and producers, Jim Belushi.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody who we thought about for a few years about possibly coming to NECANN. He obviously has a lot of customers and clients in New England. The schedule just didn't work out for him. He has his own discovery series called Growing Belushi, and they actually film each year in February and March, and we just haven't been able to do it. And this year it worked. So we're really excited to have him come out and talk about his farm and his sort of journey and becoming a big name, real cultivator. Not, I hate to even say celebrity brand, because he didn't just slap his name on a brand. He became a cultivator first and kind of earned his reputation, and then, opened a brand after he learned what he was doing.
Oregon grower and actor-comedian Jim Belushi will be the featured keynote speaker on Saturday at NECANN. And yes, we'll be reporting from the floor on Green Rush Live on Friday afternoon with Josh Kincaid and Doug Miller. That's this week's Massachusetts Cannabis Report, sponsored by Holyoke Cannabis. Bay State Cannabis Report is supported by Holyoke Cannabis, Holyoke's finest cannabis recreational experience. Speaking of the cannabis scene in Oregon, and that's where Jim Belushi does his growing and shooting for his show, Growing Belushi, that's on the Discovery Channel, we have the Oregon Cannabis Report with Marianne Kersagi.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with this week's Oregon Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Wholesale prices of cannabis in Oregon remain steadily low. Oregon's weighted average wholesale price is 18% lower than the national weighted average, according to New Leaf Data Services. Also, data from the OLCC shows total retail sales for February of 2023 dropped to the same level as February 2020, which was 3 years ago. The quantity sold was higher than this time 3 years ago, so the drop is a direct reflection of lower prices. From a consumer perspective, these low prices seem attractive, but throughout the supply chain, they are not sustainable and the industry is suffering because of it. Hopefully there will be some happy news next week. That'll do it for the Oregon Report this week. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Weed Talk News.
Does anyone you know suffer from tinnitus, or it could be pronounced tinnitus? If you aren't familiar with the condition, it causes imbalances and a constant ringing in your ears. I've got it. In my case, the left ear has never been the same since my car accident back in 2019 when I suffered my first concussion. Well, now there's a study that says cannabis might help. A study that was published in the Journal of Head and Neck Surgery, also called the Journal of, tough name to pronounce here, otolaryngology. Anyway, they claim that 80% of tinnitus patients who use cannabis regularly report that cannabis helps with equilibrium and dizziness, auditory function, anxiety, depression, and sleep disturbances. However, those of us with ringing in the ear just have to suffer. Bummer. I wonder what our green nurse from Vermont, Jessie Lynn Dolan, thinks of that. Here's her Green Mountain State Cannabis Report, sponsored by Cannatrol.
I'm Jessie Lynn Dolan from Vermont Cannabis Nurses, and this is the Weed Talk News Vermont Report. On March 14th, Onward Analytics Vermont Laboratories in Colchester is hosting the first installment of its After Hours speaker series called Rebelliously Compliant. This first series includes Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's and Carrie Giguere, Compliance Director for the Cannabis Control Board. Speakers will run from 6 to 8 p.m. with a networking social hour from 8 to 9. For more details, email info@vt.steephill.com. Hetty Vermont is hosting their 4th annual Cannabis Cup competition in April and has extended the Hetty's Cup entry deadline to March 14th. They're looking for more greenhouse and indica flower, vapes, and beverages, as well as CBD product entries. For more information, visit hettyvermont.com. The Green Mountain Patients Alliance, grassroots nonprofit for medical cannabis advocacy, have just launched an email campaign asking representatives and legislators to help support needed changes to the antiquated medical program here in Vermont. To do your part and take action, please visit greenmountainpatients.org. That's the Vermont Report for Weed Talk News. I'm Vermont's cannabis nurse, Jessie Lynn Dolan.
The Vermont Cannabis Report is supported by another Green Mountain business, Cannatrol, winner of High Times Best Dry Cure System. Check them out at cannatrols.com.
Hey, if you're looking for a new place to live in Europe, you might want to consider Italy. Of course you would. Now, if you want to grow a little weed there while you're living there, you can. Here's Lex Pelger's European Cannabis Report.
I'm Lex Pelger from White Whale Creations with this week's European Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. In a landmark decision, Italy's Supreme Court has ruled that growing a small number of cannabis plants at home for personal use does not constitute a crime. The decision came in response to an appeal made by a man who had been accused of possession of narcotics. With a very small and rudimentary grow operation, the court decided the minimal amount of cannabis grown was for personal use only and posed little risk to the public. After last month's ruling that the whole hemp plant could be used for industrial operations like CBD production, Italy is rapidly finding itself at the forefront of cannabis tolerance. In Spain, despite having no regulations around its use, they have notified the International Narcotics Control Board that they will quadruple their legal production of medicinal cannabis this year. Last year, Spain forecast producing 6 tons of cannabis, and this year they forecast 23 tons, the 11th highest amount of medical cannabis produced by any country in the world. Spain does have licenses for crops destined for research and export, and so they declared that the cannabis will be used in 3 main areas. For patients who are administered the only 2 authorized cannabinoid medications, Sativex and Epidiolex, export for medical and scientific purposes, and for the manufacture of cannabis extracts that will also be later exported. While there are 24 entities in Spain with cannabis licenses, most of these are for research or small amounts of medicinal production. The companies authorized to produce extracts are Lineo Health, owned by the Spanish magnate Juan Abello, and Metal Alchemy, owned by Curaleaf, the embattled U.S. multi-state operator. Despite lacking regulations around use, with its bustling cannabis social club scene and robust production for medicinal applications, Spain is a haven of cannabis. In Europe, and a sign of the world opening up, an Irish delegate to the European Parliament has stated that he grows his own cannabis on his balcony in Brussels and that he likes to vape it before going on runs. Luke Ming Flanagan took to Twitter to announce this after the Irish Drug Strategy Minister Hildegard Naughton admitted to illegally smoking cannabis in her 20s. Flanagan said that if Naughton had been prosecuted for this crime, she never would have become a teacher, and that he's heard from many others in severe distress about upcoming court cases over cannabis possession. He stresses that he grows the cannabis himself, and so no money goes to criminals. And he says, ironically, the only danger from this victimless crime is the guards busting through my door and ruining my life with a conviction. In the notoriously stuffy and prohibitionistic atmosphere of both Irish and EU politics, Mr. Flanagan's forthrightness is a breath of fresh air. That's the European Cannabis Report for this week. For more on the science side, see my newsletter on Substack, Cannabinoids and the People. I'm Lex Pelger from White Whale Creations, reporting for Weed Talk News.
There are a whole bunch of new bills being filed in the Illinois state legislature. Thomas Howard hosts Cannabis Legalization News, and he's our Illinois reporter. Thomas?
Welcome. My name's Tom. You can catch me on Cannabis Legalization News, and I'm here for Weed Talk News with an update from Illinois. Illinois tomorrow, which you're probably watching this today, March the 10th, this is the last day for the Illinois legislature to have a bill get out of committee for it to be able to be considered to actually pass this year. There was a slew of cannabis bills filed in the legislature in Illinois. Let's go over some of them, and then next week we can see which ones made it out of committee. There was, and I could go, and there's a lot of HBs in here, a lot. I'm not going to refer to the HBs or the SBs if they came out of the Senate. For example, one's a cannabis transportation bill. That would limit the number of cannabis transporters to how many are right now for the next 5 years. This one, I hope, does get out of committee. Right to privacy drug test. It is going to give people in the state of Illinois the right to privacy for drug tests. So you really can't test for cannabis anymore unless you maintain a drug-free workplace and are also a federal employer. Cannabis dispensing license. That, I'm not sure about that one. Cannabis delivery license. This one's crazy. They would create a new method to have delivery licenses, not transporter license, delivery licenses, similar to what you have in Massachusetts with your delivery operator license. And what that means is that the delivery person who has a license can buy the cannabis from the grower and sell it to the end user and skip over the dispensary entirely. I don't think that one's going to make it out of committee, but we'll find out next week. There's also a juvenile court expungement bill. Hopefully that one makes it out. That will help the juveniles that were in court back in the day have their records expunged more easily. Cannabis container packaging bill. Back in Illinois, it had to be a sealed odor-proof container. I think they've dropped odor-proof. Still needs to be sealed. Cannabis ancillary contracts, HB 3499. This is what we call rent-seeking behavior. Rent-seeking behavior is when you write something into the law that benefits you or your constituency. In this instance, the constituency is females, disabled people, minorities, and maybe also veterans. They would create a quota system, which is completely unconstitutional and violates equal protection. More on that this summer when the Supreme Court hands down a case that'll probably invalidate affirmative action, which is social equity's euphemism, by the way. This bill would have required cannabis license holders to have at least 30% of their ancillary contracts with a business that was registered with the state of Illinois as being a female-owned, a minority-owned, or a disabled veteran-owned business. HB 3741. Cannabis radiation and labeling. Many of the operators, they screw up and they may treat their cannabis with radiation and then further extract it and turn it into edibles or maybe even vapes. And if they irradiated the cannabis, they would then have to label it. We'll see if that one gets out. Revenue taxation. This one fixes the problems with IRC 280E. You see this all over the country. IRC 280E only really applies to dispensaries because they are the trafficking in the Schedule 1 substance. However, each state typically relaxes that. So at least for their state taxes, they would be taxed like any other business. That's what that one would do. And I really hope that it passes. The cannabis outdoor canopy space. Yes, hopefully outdoor cannabis coming to Illinois. When we have social equity licenses, we make it so expensive for them to get into business. And an outdoor license is the cheapest. It's one of the reasons why outdoor cannabis is also the cheapest because it costs the least to grow. Okay, this is another good one. Cannabis, bring your own cannabis. So this is a interesting bill that they've put out that would allow the municipalities to license these types of events or establishments that want to have consumption. Unlike what they're doing in Nevada and Illinois, consumption lounge doesn't mean dispensary where you can partake. The dispensaries are a dispensary, a consumption lounge is a consumption lounge. It is a BYOC. So bring your own cannabis bill, that's HB 939. Not sure if that one's going to make it out. We will find out, and I will be back next week with more from Illinois. The craft grower lawsuits are still grinding their way through, and today is the last day that you can apply for a dispensary in the state of Illinois. It takes 10 minutes if you're qualified. You don't need to have an LLC. You don't need to prove your social equity. You just need to say that you're social equity. And social equity in this instance has now been redefined to be both arrested for cannabis, just the right amount, or you got shot, and also you have to live in a particular place that's blighted by the drug war anywhere in the United States, and you have to be able to prove 5 out of the past 10 years. And if you win, you have 45 days to tender those documents. You don't even need to file your LLC. It's one of the cheapest lotteries for a cannabis license that I've seen. However, if you win, it becomes much more expensive. That's what's going on in the land of Lincoln. And back to you, Jimmy.
In Canada, the country continues to have a glut of product, and now they've started to export it to Jamaica. Huh? Who would have thought that would ever happen, right? Debbie Facey has our Canadian cannabis report.
Hi, this is Debbie Facey from We Talk News, your Canadian correspondent, with this week's Talk of the Week. This week in Canada, we have Dylan King from the company Pistol, which had been in agreement and a decision-making of being able to be the first Canadian company to legally ship cannabis from here to Jamaica. This is not only a start for the distribution of cannabis being able to be shipped across the world, but it is also a new way for the Canadian market and the Jamaican market to come together and to be able to fulfill what our consumers are in need of, which are some new products and as well as some new lines that are going to be able to be available throughout, hopefully, the world. What we also have is many of the labs that are actually testing the cannabis here in Canada are requesting for a more thorough testing. And that is something that I do actually agree with hugely. With many of our tests, they do have to pass through hands, which means that over time, it can not only disintegrate, but there could be toxins that could have led inside the cannabis before it actually gets to the shelves. With that being said, many of the lab technicians are asking for a more thorough testing, but that is something that is still in the works and hasn't necessarily been promised in order to be fulfilled, especially with our new laws wanting to be revised, especially when it comes to the edible market. Last but not least, which is a very different and I guess almost, I don't want to say dire, but it is a dire concern. In Canada, BC has legally, or I should say decriminalized, the possession of small amounts of all drugs, meaning, like I said, all drugs. So the maximum amount that one is able to obtain or to have on hand is 2.5 grams. There is a cannabis company by the name of Astria, which has gotten the green light to start a research and development process of creating our own cocaine. What they have been able to do is obtain the go-ahead to gain coca leaves from Colombia in order for us to now start the testing and the development of Canadian cocaine. Due to the fact that the cannabis industry has the ability and the labs already intact to be able to do these sort of testings, it has allowed some of these cannabis companies that are interested in it to apply, but they do have to develop a thorough development plan as to why and how this is going to benefit Canada. Now, this is Debbie Facey with your Canadian Talk of the Week. And thanks, We Talk News.
Finally, it's time to check the cannabis stocks. High on Wall Street's Doug Miller is our regular day trader and business host of Green Rush Live.
Hello, everyone. I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. Hexo, I mentioned on my stock service last week, it was at about 166, and I said it was going to dip down to the 140s. Well, it's trading around 146 today, and let me play that clip for you. Hexo, HEXO, it's curling down. You can probably short it. I'll keep my eye on it. It's going to go to like the 140 area. It's at the 166 area. All right, now Hexo. You saw it's down around 140s right now. It could dip a little bit more, but I'm telling you, something's going on. That stock chart is actually setting up to look good. So keep your eye on it because it could just pop and run real fast. So keep your eye on Hexo. And that's this week's cannabis stock report reporting for Weed Talk News. I'm Doug Miller.
And finally tonight, Big Poppy is heading to Maine. Well, maybe not with snow on the ground and winter temperatures still the norm, but you will be able to get the David Ortiz brand of cannabis concoctions in Maine, courtesy of his distribution partner, Rev Clinics. And if you haven't tried the MLB Hall of Famer stuff, I can personally recommend it. Trust me. That's Weed Talk News for this week. I'm Jimmy Young, filling in for the vacationing Elena Pinto. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to all of our pro-cannabis media content. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of In the Weeds, and once in a while, the really live business cannabis talk show we call Green Rush on Friday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore, so I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now, if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weejits filtration system. What? The Weejits.com, Weejits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. Now, the guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. So here's how it works. You start with that glass bowl, you flame on, and then you inhale nice and smooth so the smoke goes through 3 different filtration and cooling systems. Now, if pre-rolls is your thing, you can use the Weejits filter that a pre-roll fits into perfectly. That's right, or even a chillum. The more filters, the smoother the draw. Best of all is the price. You can get all this, or one or the other, for just a few bucks. It'll cool your smoke and you'll give your lungs a break. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. All that resin and tar is collected in the polyurethane filters that are easy to clean with soap, water, and a few Q-tips. Your lungs will thank you, and so will I.
As a broker, we have access to many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu. So it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
So the reality of the matter is, big banks and small banks are going to be different in a lot of ways. And they're both going to have their advantages and disadvantages. For a business like cannabis, you really have to have an integral knowledge of that business and a real granular knowledge of that business and the players involved in it. And that's why if you look at the banks that are successful to play in this space in Massachusetts, they are smaller banks that are very heavy, intensified personal touch, human communication, where you don't get a lot of that with the bigger banks.